Good evening, all. It is now 6 p.m. and I call this regular meeting to order. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having us. I am Katie Siebel, the proud principal of Blue Jacket Flint Elementary. I have some amazing Thunderbirds here with us this evening, our student council representatives, and also I have the amazing Mrs. Hill, fifth grade teacher at Blue Jacket Flint, Stuco representative teacher, and Mrs. Nicole Hodge. And so we're going to have the students introduce themselves and take this. Go ahead.
Yes, now, of course, we have to have the question.
The question.
The question, which is, what's the best thing about your school, Blue Jacket Flint?
All right, I look forward to hearing about it.
All right.
My name is Iris, and my favorite thing about Blue Jacket Flint is all the friends you get to make.
My name is Tony, and my favorite thing about BJF is the teachers and Mrs. Hill.
My name is Angelina, and my favorite thing about BJF is the music clubs.
My name is Lincoln, and what I like about BJF is the subjects.
My name is August, and my favorite thing about BJF is lunchtime.
My name is Esther, and my favorite thing about BJF is the staff and making friends.
My name is Lucas Marcellus, and my favorite thing about BJF is the music clubs.
My name is Anna, and my favorite thing about BJF is the equality and how nobody ever feels left out.
My name is Zeke, and my favorite thing about BJF is the community.
My name is Julia, and my favorite thing about BJF is all the friends and the supportive community we make.
My name is Corbin, and my favorite thing about BJF is that if you ever felt left out, you won't feel left out the next second.
My name is Malachi, and my favorite part about BJF is how we spread kindness over our school.
I did not tell them to say those things. I'm just letting you know, I did not tell them. I promise. That was on their own.
You're just a beaming principal right now, I hope.
Thank you all. Oh, wow. I know, adjourned. I know. I want to kind of simmer in that sentiment there. Man.
I'm a proud BJF alum.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, back to business. So, adoption of the last agenda. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented if there are no changes? Second?
Second, Hembry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We will approve the previous meeting minutes at one time unless there are any changes. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes in items 1.04 through 1.09?
So moved, Ousley.
Second?
Sinclair. Oh, second.
Second, Sinclair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I will turn to my left for Dr. Schumacher to present the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Boyd-Nerona. We will continue with some amazing news. To begin with, for several weeks this quarter, anyone who has been in this boardroom has been able to enjoy artwork created by Shawnee Mission School District staff members. We're excited to share that a prize winner has been named from this very talented group of artists. Jackie Stokes, food service assistant at Crestview Elementary, who submitted a quilted panel of faces, is this year's honoree. The artwork is called Celebrate. As a winner, Jackie received a $250 personal recognition prize and earned a $250 grant for the school's art department to further support student creativity. The artwork also will be part of the district's permanent collection. It's actually right outside these doors if you want to take a look at it on your way out. This is the first quilted textile to be included. We thank Megan Ellis, Visual Arts Coordinator, and Lenexa Hills Art Teacher for her coordination of this faculty art show. And we also thank the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation for making the monetary prizes possible and support of the show. Maybe give her a round of applause. Another great recognition. I want to extend congratulations to our Shawnee Mission School District Communications team. They recently earned 13 awards from the Kansas School Public Relations Association, also known as KANSPRA. They were the only communications team in the state to earn this many awards, 6 of which were awards of excellence. Here's the list. They were honored in the areas of crisis communication, financial publication, marketing material, special event, special purpose publication, a single video entry highlighting the district theme, a branding image package, infographic, writing, magazine, photo series, podcast, and for social media. Thank you to our friend David Smith, who leads this team, and thanks to everyone in the SMSD communications team for all they do to share the Shawnee Mission story. Another round of applause, please. Allison Rogers, a pre-kindergarten teacher at Trailwood, was a recipient of a Teacher Appreciation Surprise recently. She won a Chiefs VIP experience for tonight's football game after being nominated by members of her book club. We hope to see some of that game later. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. Sorry about that. Focus, yeah. Rogers was nominated for her dedication, passion, and skills in the classroom. She is one of 2 teachers to receive this recognition out of more than 300 applicants. Congratulations to Mrs. Rogers and to Trailwood. Yeah. We wanted to share a friendly reminder to all student artists that the deadline for the 2025-2026 Reflections Art Contest is November 2nd. Students are encouraged to create an original work of art inspired by the theme, I Belong. They have the option of expressing their interpretation through dance choreography, film production, literature, music competition, photography, and visual art. Each year, we enjoy celebrating the student award winners at a board meeting, and we cannot wait to see what students contribute this year. We will include a link in the recap with more information on how to submit entries. All right, you guys ready for this? As temperatures start to cool, we want to be sure our community knows our Shawnee Mission School District inclement weather procedures. We'll include a link in the recap outlining the inclement weather procedures for this school year so that everyone can be familiar with the potential scenarios. This link also includes information about how families and staff members can hear about any weather-related school cancellations. If we announce any inclement weather procedures, we will announce it broadly across district platforms, and we thank everyone for their plans and preparations should a procedure need to be announced. I would point out that we are going from 4 different options to 3, so I would encourage everyone to check out those 3 remaining options. And with that, I'm excited to invite Principal David Ewers from Shawnee Mission North High School to introduce our first All-Star this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Schumacher and members of the Board of Education. I'm Dave Ewers, I'm the principal at Shawnee Mission North. It's my honor to introduce our SMSD All-Star, Pam Morris. Pam has been our lead administrative assistant in student services for the past 13 years. Pam is also a North alum, one of 13 North alums that serve our building currently in various capacities. Pam has been a North parent. Pam also obviously works at North as well. She leads our student services department that includes our counselors, our social workers, our school psych, and our college advisor. She's the first person to greet people as they enter this office. And these people can include students, parents, guardians, community members, college representatives, people from government agencies. Guys, I'll tell you, Pam gets all the feelings whenever people come into her office. There's a wide range of feelings that she encounters right away. And Pam has this uncanny ability to be a calming presence for them. She welcomes them with warmth and compassion, but she also passionately supports those in our student services. She has unbelievable institutional knowledge, but more importantly, she has an unbelievable love for our community and our building. So without further ado, let's watch this video for Pam Morse.
Pam is such an amazing person, just a human. She loves North. She graduated from here, so she has a long history and tradition here in North. She's very proud of that, and that just comes out all the time when she talks about North. And she just really has a lot of positivity with the kids and the staff, and she just is always smiling and giggling and just really positive.
She keeps that entire office held together. She does a fantastic job of working with staff, students, families, community members. She just does an incredible job of making them feel really welcome into the student services area, and she's so knowledgeable of everything that goes on in that realm of the building. She has an immediate calming effect over everyone that she encounters.
She is amazing. The students that come in who maybe are having some struggles, she knows how to talk to those students. She knows how to handle anything that's really thrown at her. She is empathetic, she's caring, she's kind.
Goes out of her way to build a connection with you. And I'm in student services very rarely, but still she says hi to me in the hallways and she still knows my name and she goes out of her way to make us feel welcomed.
Pam sets the tone for student services. She makes us all look good. She makes the vibe and the feel of student services positive, and we're just so grateful for all that she does in front of and behind the scenes.
Well deserved, Pam. You keep everything going. We are so thankful for you, and we truly would be lost without you as our student services secretary.
Oh my gosh, Pam, you so deserve it. I'm so happy for you, and thank you so much for being such a great advocate for our students and staff.
Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. You deserved it so much, and I'm so happy for you.
Pam, congratulations for being nominated as a Shawnee Mission School District All-Star. There is no better person to represent, and we are so grateful for everything you do for us in student services.
I can't think of a more deserving individual. You're the glue that holds our student services together. I'm not sure what we'd do without you. We love you very much, and thank you for everything you do for our building.
Thank you, everybody, for the nice introduction and the nomination. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Great job on the video, Tom. And then also thank you for those who chose me for this month's All-Star. What an honor it is. And thanks for my family for showing up for me. My husband, Stan, my brother, Kelly. And then thanks for the student services coworkers for coming tonight, my admin for being here. They always support me and have my back. And I've worked in the district for 20 plus years in various positions and have worked 13 years at North. I would have worked there sooner, but my kids wouldn't let me until they graduated, mainly my daughter. And then the counseling secretary position involves a lot of multitasking duties, and I try to do those jobs as best as I can. I try really hard to make everyone comfortable when they come into student services. I enjoy working with the new families and students enrolling at North and working with our at-risk students. It's rewarding to watch these nervous and anxious students get involved in school activities and then blossom into confident 12th graders. Hopefully, I'm making a difference. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morris, for everything you do for that North community. You're very much appreciated. All right, please welcome Dr. Kelly Capper, principal at Indian Hills Middle School, to introduce our next All-Star this evening.
Thank you. I am introducing Margaret Thompson, one of our art teachers. And to truly introduce Margaret, I just want to paint a picture of what a middle school art room looks like. I know you all have thoughts, but when you walk into Margaret's classroom, you would feel immense joy. Every kid is smiling. She's smiling. You're hearing talking. You're hearing them collaborate. You're hearing kids say, Dr. Capper, come look at my artwork. What do you think of this? And you just see Margaret bopping around to every single student. The sense of self-pride in their work, self-confidence, you feel it when you walk into her room. The joy on her face. Every single kid in that room can do the art that she is doing because she differentiates probably at 500 levels. Because she wants every kid to feel like they're an artist and feel proud of the work that they do. She makes our students feel like they belong in and outside of the classroom. And also our staff. Our staff love Margaret. She's fabulous to work with. Our families, she goes out of her way to have meetings to talk about, okay, if we try this, what can we do to help support your student? And the kids don't just feel, like I said, that self-confidence, that self-pride, but they truly just feel loved in her presence. And that is amazing. I cannot say how lucky I am to work alongside her, as well as I truly wish my kids could be in her classroom because of how I've seen the impact of her teaching with every single one of our kids, all 885. Okay, let's watch this video to learn more about how Margaret's awesome.
Every part of our portrait of a graduate, communicator, problem solving, you name it, you're gonna see it in our art class here. I have not gone into her class where I haven't seen every single kid engaged and happy. And that is a huge feat in itself, especially in a middle school atmosphere, but she just is so delightful. And kids connect with her so easily.
There are just those people that come into every day with positivity, that have that kind of that zest or that verve for life, and that is definitely what Ms. Thompson brings to the table.
She is the educator that I would want my children to have as a teacher. Fantastic with everyone, special needs kids. She does everything in her power to accommodate everyone in her classroom from all levels, and I've never seen anything like it.
I can color, like paint, I like clay.
She brings a lot of light to the classroom. Her classroom is really a fun space to be in. She keeps it really energetic and lively.
She's like one of the best art teachers I've gotten. I'm not a very creative person. I'd rather just think of the logical side of things, and she makes me think about what I can create.
Miss Thompson, she's a very creative teacher, and she makes her classroom a safe space for everyone.
I think it's important to have art class because it's important to think outside the box and be creative. I think you're a really good teacher, and I'm glad I have you this semester.
Hi, Miss Thompson. You're my favorite teacher. Don't tell the other ones.
Miss Thompson, I think you deserve your award, and I'm really happy for you.
Hi, Miss Thompson. Thank you for being such a great art teacher. You're really so kind and helpful, and you really made art a great experience for me.
Miss Thompson, thank you for including everyone in the classroom. I really appreciate that class. It just helps me between other classes, and I think it's really important.
Margaret, you're the best. You are my new best friend, and I love you, and I always will. So thank you.
Hi, I wrote these things down, so this is very humbling. I'm a proud product of Shawnee Mission Schools. I went to Crestview Elementary and then Antioch, RIP, and Shawnee Mission North. And North is really where I found my love for art. And I was in classes with amazing teachers like Greg Brantman and Sally Jones and Linda Shapiro and Enola Porter. And they were just amazing, welcoming teachers. And they were the type of teacher I wanted to be. And once I graduated KU, I was fortunate enough to get to student teach at North with Greg. And that was a dream come true to work alongside my mentors. And then later, I was also a teacher at North for 3 years and alongside, again, my mentors. So I took 12 years off to stay home with my family, my son and daughter and my husband, and I didn't realize how much I missed teaching until I came back to the district to be a substitute, and I really missed the kids. I missed the interaction, and I was very fortunate to be rehired into the district at Indian Hills, and I was a little apprehensive about middle school. I'd never taught middle school before, and my mom, who taught at Antioch, RIP, and Hawker Grove for years, was always telling me that it's a wonderful place and you would fit right in, and she was right. And I learned a lot from her and her style of teaching and caring for kids, and I try to use that in my day-to-day practices too. So Indian Hills has an amazing staff, and the teachers are fantastic, the administrators are so supportive, and the electives hall, they're my crew. And then Shawnee Mission is just the best place as far as their advocating for arts and their art department cross-district. And I'm just so fortunate to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Thank you for coming home and making such a difference in the lives of our kids. Really appreciate it. And as we wrap up, just a final comment on some topical issues here in the U.S. As the federal government shutdown continues, we are closely monitoring potential impacts on our students, our staff, and our families. There's concern if the shutdown continues, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP funding, will not be allocated in November. SNAP, the largest anti-hunger program in America, provides food benefits to families with low income to supplement their grocery budget so they can afford nutritious food essential to health and well-being. Student Nutrition Services is an important operation in our school district. We know that students learn better when they have the food they need to stay healthy and grow. We will continue to serve breakfast and lunch in our schools to students. Families can apply for free or reduced price school meals when their financial situation changes. Those changes can include unemployment, reduction in hours, or other financial shifts. We will include a link in the recap to information about our student nutrition program, as well as helpful details and applications related to free and reduced lunch. On that note, access to food and nutrition is important at every age, both at home and at school. As one Shawnee Mission, we recognize some in our community may be affected and may need assistance. We'll include a series of links in the recap outlining local food pantries and services to help connect families with additional support and resources. With that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much for noting that, Dr. Schumacher, as you close your report. So let us move then now to board reports, and I'll start to my right, Board Member Garcia.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief. I don't have a report for Shawnee Mission Education Foundation or the SMAC PTA. Thank you.
Ms. Boardman. No, I'm sorry. Dr. Sinclair.
The Finance and Facilities Committee is scheduled to meet next on Thursday, November 6th at 4 p.m., so next week. And you and I owe Dr. Schumacher some ideas for agenda, so we'll get that to you ASAP.
Sounds great.
That's it.
All righty, Board Member Borgman.
Yeah, thank you very much. Fellow board members, I hope that you all are planning to attend the KASB Annual Convention, November 14th through 16th in Wichita. The theme this year is Ad Astra, Aim Beyond. It's going to be a wonderful few days together, learning from some really neat people in our space, as well as just an opportunity to collaborate and chat with other board members from across the state. The keynote speaker is Ron Guerin, and he is a NASA astronaut, fighter pilot, and social entrepreneur. He's written a couple books. It's at this point a little too late to get his memoir, Floating in Darkness, prior to the convention, but I'm sure we will all be very inspired once we hear him talk, and we will all be going to our favorite local bookstore to get our own copies. So hope to see you all there, and that's it.
Thank you. So on to legislative committee. I'm sorry. Yes.
So the Policy Review Committee, we've delayed our meeting, and we do not have it rescheduled yet. So once we have a date for that, we will let the board know. And then there are several agenda items today that are second reads from policies that we provided at the last meeting. And then in addition to that, the voting delegation at KASB, there is currently 2 candidates running to be KASB board president or KASB president-elect, so they serve in that capacity for a year before they're president. The candidate voter guide is in the board docs so that you can go and read about the 2 candidates, and then if you have a preference towards one or the other, you can let Jamie and I know, because voting occurs at the convention. So just if you have an opportunity to review, I think I have their names pulled up. Looks like it is Kurt Herman, he's with the Manhattan-Ogden District, and then Judy Price, who's with the Leavenworth District. So they both have large bios in the voter guide for you to review. And that's all. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And rounding us up, Board Member Westbrook.
Thank you. We had a wonderful meeting last week with a number of the cadre teachers in the real-world learning area of the elementary education program in Shawnee Mission. Had a number of leading businesses who came in to spend a round-robin session with these teachers, sharing with them what the business community is looking to try to do to help schools do our job to prepare kids with critical thinking skills as well as practical skills for the future, and what elementary schools could look to these companies as support for their efforts. A lot of elementary teachers, I think, have been skeptical about early real-world learning efforts, and I think this session was very helpful to this cadre to destigmatize the program for that level of education, but also to learn from those teachers about what they need by way of help and to find the business community eager to help. I represented the Historical Society, whose board I serve on, and got a chance to listen in on the sessions. They were inspiring, they were engaging. It was a very, very positive experience for everyone. I compliment Laura on putting it together and the businesses that were willing to come in to help us. So, good report, and we have more to come.
Thank you so much. So we now turn to 2.03, our board financial report. Dr. Schumacher kicking it off?
Yes, I'm going to throw it to Mr. Knapp. We do have an update for you in regards to our enrollment. We did have a decrease in our projected enrollment this year, which is going to have an impact on our budget. I would like Russ to detail that for you.
Yes, good evening. So today is the board financial report is as of September 30th, which closes out the first quarter of this fiscal year. On the expenditure side, there's really no concerns at this time to report to you, but on the revenue side, we wanted to go over this summary that is on the board tonight. As you know, September 20th is the official enrollment count day, which we submit our head count FTE, weighted FTEs, and that's what our general state aid is based on. So we have completed that process, and we have submitted it on the board and attached to the board agenda as a summary of those results. They are still subject to an audit. We're scheduled to be audited in January, but there won't be much change from when they do get audited. So at this point, our head count ended up being about 250 kids less this year than the prior year, but funding is based off FTE and not head count. So our FTE was 294 FTE down. That does not impact this school year because you get to take the higher of the prior year or the current year. So we're working off our FTE from the prior year. So there's no impact in this year on that. The weighted FTE is based off the current year only, and we're going to be down about 317 FTE based on what we presented and approved our budget in August. So you can see the numbers there. General state aid will be about $1.8 million less than what we budgeted. LOB will be another $600,000 for a total of about $2.4 million less in revenue in the current year. Then as far as next year, for 26-27 budget, since it is current year or prior year, we'll be working off this number that is down this year. So we know at this time we'll be down 290 FTE for next year's budget. The exceptions are that we could be based off current year, which we won't know until September 20th to 26th. So there's still hope that enrollment rebounds. The other thing is we are in our final year of the base being based off CPI. That's trending at about 2.8%. Again, that's for 26-27. So we'll continue to monitor the current year like we always do going into the budget development process that we'll start here in November and bring to you in April and May. And I stand for, or I'll sit it for any questions, Pam.
So I look to my left and right. Yes.
So we had a census update a little while ago where there was a lot of other numbers, but there was a general trajectory of some dip in enrollment expected. Is this within what we anticipated based off of the estimates that we received previously, or is this slightly more of a downtick than we were potentially anticipating?
I think it's more. We were actually projected 35 kids up, our own projections based on our own cohort survival rate. But yes, we're down. Our surrounding districts, Blue Valley, Olathe, are both down. So
we did we did a little surveying from our principals who lost the most students. The majority of our enrollment was lost at our title schools. And anecdotally, we don't have any empirical data to point to this, but anecdotally, there are some comments about immigration and cost of living in Johnson County as principals reached out to those families who were no longer returning.
So with Blue Valley and Olathe both also down, we're not losing necessarily in competition to other local districts?
I don't think so.
Is what I'm hearing you say.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And is that about, what, 8 or so FTE per elementary building then, if we're kind of losing it mostly at the elementary level?
It's not an even split across the elementaries. It was, the major impact was at our title schools.
yeah, we were about 146 kids down in elementary. Most of those were in the Title I schools. So that in your weighted FTEs, and then that will result in less at-risk dollars and the ELL dollars.
So just confirming, it's not that these students are going to neighboring districts or private schools. We don't know for sure where they are, but.
And we knew where they were going for the most part. There was some going to private schools. There was a lot going out of the county, was what we heard. And a lot of those were, again, reference to cost of living in the county, which I know that we're not I've been at several chamber events recently, and it's a discussion in the county. But there were also some comments about immigration. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments? And with that, thank you. Which leads us then to our discussion items 3.01, our strategic plan quarter one update.
Yeah, we're very excited to welcome some wonderful speakers led by Dr. Leanne Neal, our Chief of Strategic Initiatives. Leanne shepherds this work along for us and does so amazingly. We did a number of action teams last year, and we've continued that work this year, and we've got some really exciting work. So welcome, Dr. Neal.
Thank you, Dr. Schumacher. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Schumacher, and those joining us here this evening. Tonight, we're pleased to provide an update on the district's strategic plan work. We, like always, if you would advance the slide for us, We always like to start out with a reminder that the plan, of course, was developed with the input of our community and adopted by the board to guide the work of our district from 2024 to 2029. And then we also always like to include that reminder that we are working very hard across all areas of the school district and in our schools to align all of the work that we are doing so that everything that we are doing in classrooms, in departments, decisions we are making, that we're all focused and moving forward together with the critical focus always on our students and preparing them for success so that, Portrait of a Graduate, all those important skills always lie at the center of our work. Just a quick reminder here of our agreed-upon strategy areas. We have 6 strategies this time and the key objectives there for you as a reminder. And tonight is the first of 3 strategic plan updates for this school year. We'll be back in February and June with other reports. In between our updates, of course, as you know, you often receive like little mini updates or connections with the strategic plan through other program evaluations or reports, so keep an eye out for that as well. We have numerous teams working on specific action steps. Dr. Schumacher helped remind us of that, and I think right now we've got, about 26 or more going at the moment and more to follow still this year. Focused action teams are working really hard. They're focused on things like personalized learning and those personalized plans of study, continuing to develop opportunities for students to have experiences that connect outside of the classroom. We have a team working on developing a streamlined set of communication policies and procedures, as well as accessibility related to school and district communication, supporting certified and classified team members, and looking at recruitment and retention. Working on developing those guides and framework related to technology, and of course, creating a hub of wellness resources to be easily accessible for our community. So that's just a few highlights of teams that are actively working. But in an effort to highlight and really dig into some of the great work happening in our action teams, we thought it might be enjoyable for you to hear from some of those team members. And so we're going to focus on 2 teams this evening. And the great thing is they're going to be representing 2 of our strategies. So we have a focus from the learning strategy, action team 133, increase professional learning for differentiated core instruction to meet those individual student needs. That's the first team you'll hear from. And then the second team is part of our belonging strategy number 2, and they are going to update you on their work about ongoing professional development and increasing student voice and student learning opportunities to continue to foster that sense of belonging for all. Additional overarching updates we'll provide to you a little bit later in the presentation, as well as, whenever I come, I always have that reminder of how our school district community can continue to engage, and we certainly need every single member. These are volunteers that serve on these teams and are doing yeoman's work, and so we continue to try to highlight our need for that. So our first feature this evening is Action Team 133, and Dr. Brittany Gonzer helps to facilitate and lead that work, and she was unable to be with us this evening, so she actually has recorded a brief video update. Also joining us in person this evening are members of the action team, Dr. Laura DeAtter. She's an ELL specialist at Brookridge Elementary, and then Whitney Mason. She's an instructional coach at Shawnee. But first, let's take a quick listen to hear from Dr. Gonzer to give us a little update of their work.
On behalf of the 1.3.3 Action Team, we are excited to celebrate the work of our team this evening and share with you our progress so far. Action Team 133 is part of the greater learning strategy of our strategic plan, which states, we will ensure meaningful and personalized learning experiences for all of our students. Our action step in particular states that we will increase the professional learning for differentiated core instruction to meet individual student needs. If you really want to simplify the work of our action team, we have been tasked with designing the professional learning about differentiated core instruction in order to meet the needs of all students. Our team began our work 1 year ago in September of 2024. We've met 8 times since then. We would like to share our work with you thus far. Before we begin, it's important that we take this opportunity to thank and acknowledge our greater team. All of these individuals have been committed to the work and integral in our progress. Thank you also to the initial Learning Action team who guided our work. You built a strong foundation for our team to build on. During our first meeting last fall, we really worked to dissect exactly what this strategy was asking of us. We reviewed the work of the initial Strategy 1 action team. We focused in on the word core. That really stood out to us in their work. We concluded that that means our focus is Tier 1 and 2, or more specifically, our grade level standards. Our team is not focusing in on Tier 3. We took 3 suggestions from the previous group: the Solution Tree RTI workshop and what a beneficial experience that has been for many, increased general professional learning about RTI, and professional learning about scaffolding in Collegiate. Going into our second meeting, we really wanted to look at this professional learning piece, and we determined that there are 2 different types of professional learning that would need to occur for us to fulfill our mission. The first part would be PD for everyone. So that would apply to all educators about RTI. But there's a second layer that we would need for PD for leaders of the work at each building. We noted that the Solution Tree RTI workshop that was suggested by the initial strategic plan team would be most appropriate for that building level RTI leadership team. During our third meeting, we revisited the work from cycle 1 of the strategic plan. In the previous cycle, we know that there was a lot of work done around RTI. In particular, we know that the RTI Guidebook for Student Success came out of cycle 1 of our strategic plan. We acknowledged our current reality after taking a further look at that document, and we acknowledged that we have not fully implemented the RTI Guidebook for Student Success. Therefore, that's going to be what drives all of our professional learning moving forward. We also again acknowledge that the Solution Tree RTI conference, previously suggested by the initial action team, would be part of that PD for our building leaders. Meetings 4 through 6 really focused in on a deep dive into that RTI guidebook that I mentioned. We analyzed all of the work of the previous team, we heard from previous team members, and really wanted to gain more insights on what their intentions were. We asked if the previously identified competencies aligned with our goals, and if they would fulfill the mission of this part of our strategic plan, cycle 2. We determined that they would, so we continued our work. We reorganized the existing competencies into I can statements and made sure that they aligned with our refreshed goals. If you're curious and want to know more about the RTI Guidebook for Student Success, that lives on our curriculum and instruction homepage, and you'll see that all of our work moving forward will be based on that document. Based on the work of our first 7 meetings, we reached consensus at our 8th meeting on September 29th of this year and said that we will recommend a 2-prong approach to RTI professional learning for the Shawnee Mission School District. This approach will fulfill the needs outlined by the initial action team and ensure that we increase professional learning for differentiated core instruction to meet individual student needs. Here's a breakdown of what that will include. So prong 1 will be that professional learning for all that I shared with you about. So we plan to develop professional learning based on the competencies from the SMSD RTI Guidebook for Student Success. This professional learning will be consistent for all buildings, because professional learning will also be required at all buildings. Each building will implement the professional learning at their own pace and based on their own needs, but there will be guidance and support from an RTI leadership team. Prong 2 is highly dependent upon prong 1 and vice versa. So we will create this RTI leadership team at each building. These individuals will be the leaders and trainers for their buildings. They will implement the PD for all that we create as part of prong 1. The leaders are going to focus in on creating a system for RTI in their buildings. These will also be the folks who attend the Solution Tree RTI workshop training. If our recommendation is approved, that's not going to be the end of the work. Our next steps will include mapping out professional learning for all staff based on those RTI competencies. We'll also be providing some guidance on who should serve on those RTI leadership teams. We'll provide the professional learning to the RTI leadership teams, and we will create a timeline and implementation model for both types of professional learning. We know we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're excited about the path that we're on. Our team will meet again on November the 10th.
Thank you so much for your time this evening, and we look forward to sharing more progress with you soon.
So we are here to answer any questions that you have. Unfortunately, Dr. Gonzar is not here with us, but we will do our best to be able to answer any questions that you might have for us.
Dr. Shu, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead. No.
Thank you for the presentation, and for Dr. Gonzar, pass along a thank you for chiming in even though she couldn't be here. So the part of the plan, it sounds like at the building level, there's kind of this self-paced component to going through. Is that how you see being able to be responsive to the level of expertise in each building? Like some buildings might have more expertise, or maybe needing to spend more time in certain aspects of the professional development. Does that feel then it becomes more responsive to the building needs that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we have seen as a district that has been so successful is really the belonging teams, and being able to have kind of a train the trainer model, and where we can have a district, from the district level, having trainers or the RTI teams going to getting the trainings, and then being able to see the actual individual needs at the buildings. So then that way they can take it to their buildings and address the needs where they have specifically, so that way they can be more intentional to what they have and their needs there.
We talked a lot about it being a pacing that matches where the building is at and individualizing it that way too, so yes.
And let me just add on to it though. So is there a baseline timeline kind of embedded throughout everyone's process? Are we there yet, or?
I think that's something that we're going to be discussing in upcoming meetings. So one of the things that I think that she had mentioned is that in the November 10th we had talked about is discussing who would be the best candidates to be part of the RTI teams and the individual buildings. And obviously depending on the building's needs, it might be different from one building to the other, depending on the staff that they have there and who would make the best fit and role for that.
So we hadn't talked timeline yet. It's upcoming.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks for the presentation, and I love the flexibility that we provided for Dr. Gonzar and allowing her to do that voiceover. She has a lovely voice, by the way.
She's on the podcast
voice.
Podcast too. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Okay, so I just had a couple follow-up questions. So it sounds like what I heard Dr. Gonzar say is we're really getting laser focused on the process of sort of implementation. We've realized that each building will have the autonomy to sort of make it work for their student population, their student body. But right now, we're getting really, like, the nuts and bolts really tightened on how the process will be carried out through each individual school. That's my first question. Is that accurate?
I think you're right. We're really wanting to make sure there's some clarity around what our action team is about, and that we had a lot of discussion but about what it even means, the core versus the differentiation. And so we want to make sure all those conversations make it to each building level, and that there's clarity across the board for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things also along those lines is that although there are individual needs from one building to the other, we're also wanting to make sure that there is a commonality in terms of what we are presenting as a district in terms of professional development and the RTI process, and so making sure that there is an expectation that is being followed. So one of the things that we did notice is that the RTI guidebook was created, and there was many hours and many people that spent numerous amounts of time on that program and on that guidebook, but then when it came down to being, it really just unfortunately, as you like to say, it kind of sat on the shelf in a lot of situations where, although there have been some schools that have done an amazing job being able to use it and have it as a guidance, there have been other situations where it hasn't been used as much as what it really should be. And so that's why we want to be able to honor all the work that was done previously, and then have that as being the guidance to what we are using going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much for expanding on that, because we certainly want, I mean, while it's great to have each school have autonomy to really create it to meet the needs of their students, we want to make sure that we're all sort of moving, in a similar direction and with the same goals. And I am curious, once you guys meet and get the, your committees and leadership teams figured out, what accountability looks like to make sure they don't just sit on a shelf. So thank you very much for really calling that out. The one question that I had is just in general, in Dr. Gonzer's presentation, she said that you're focusing on tier 1 and tier 2, but not tier 3. I was a little uncertain, what does that mean? I didn't know what the tiers were, and what are 1 and 2, and what's 3, and why was 3 left off?
So the actual action step is specifically targeted towards professional development, towards differentiated, so professional development and differentiated learning
Of the core.
in the core classroom. So when you're looking at the 3 different tiers of the RTI model, tier 1 is for all of the students, and that's the classroom where everyone has access to. And then tier 2 would be to where you are having kind of a refresh or seeing what the individual needs are for students that maybe like need an extra repeat of what they didn't get.
It's the reteaching
The
or
reteaching.
extending of the grade level standards.
Yes.
So our Kansas standards for that grade level.
Right. Tier 3, however, is more of the intervention specifically that would be provided by either special education or interventionists. They're small group settings, and so those are not something that this specifically is targeting, because as this is one of the targets of our action team, our strategic plan, it's to be able to increase the professional development of the core time in the actual general education setting.
I think it speaks to your first question, Ms. Borgman, is to make sure that we get our core in line
Right.
Yes.
across the entire system.
A strong
If we can
core?
do that, yeah, if we have a strong core, we're set up for success.
And I'm going to throw you a softball if you don't mind. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
I don't mean to dominate this. I think that one of the things that makes public education so special is our commitment to RTI. So just a level set for people, why is RTI so critical in our classrooms and our buildings?
I mean, it's for every student and every learner. We want all of our kids to succeed. All of them are our kids, and that's how we get there. It's the process.
And that, yeah, and really, when it comes down to the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 is everybody. So tier 1, if we are really targeting being able to differentiate in the tier 1 classroom, then it will hopefully then, the reason why it is a pyramid or is the triangle is that you should be able to have a whole lot less at the top with tier 3 if you're doing it correctly and doing it well in the tier 1.
Beautifully said.
Yep.
Yes.
This might be more of a Dr. Shu question, but so we've spent the last, I don't know, last decade kind of restoring and refreshing our instructional resources as part of as our general education funding has been restored. Do we feel like that's a piece that we have the instructional resources for our staff in those core areas and all the cadre mapping and all those pieces to really dig in more intentionally to the response to intervention?
Yeah, I think for the most part we have, but
missing a piece.
we've had to be really intentional about it through our budgeting process to make sure that we can supplement that instructional resource budget because we do not collect enough student fees to do that, so we're having to pull from the operating funds. It does get a little thin as we look 5, 6, 7, 8 years out, and that's where some more resources from the state or the feds would certainly benefit us. Did that answer your question? Okay, yep.
Thank you for all this information. That was great, and a great explanation to RTI and why it matters, which is awesome to hear during one of these meetings, I think, for everybody. Quick question on the differentiated PD, and maybe the answers in the question, but was it because of the action team, the makeup of the action team, that we were able to come to that conclusion that we needed all staff PD and then also building leadership PD? Is that because of the makeup of the group that was able to provide some of the insight and maybe needs of some of the building leadership, or has this been a number of years of challenges, like ensuring that those individuals had what they need as well?
I think absolutely. I had the fortunate opportunity of being on that learning strategic team. And so that was one of the things that came up in conversation, that we had a wide variety of representation, whether it was from the community, parents, staff members, students. And so it was amazing to hear, especially that is something for me being in the role that I'm in, I see differentiated learning as a need
all the day, every day, like all day long. So when we brought it up as a concern or something that we needed to improve upon, it was widely agreed upon that we needed to increase our ability to differentiate and meet the needs of the individualized students. So not only, part of our strategic plan is having the individualized learning plans. And so that in itself is, well, then how are you doing that? So this really kind of comes to okay, so we know that this is a need, so now how are we doing it? And so that's really the importance of, okay, so we obviously need some more extra PD to make sure that we are giving staff the best options possible.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to say how helpful I think it was to hear with a lot of clarity. I feel like sometimes when we get into these things that are like deep around like education, pedagogy, and instruction, if you were to share that problem statement with like average parent on the street, they would not know what it means to provide professional development for differentiated core instruction. So I think when we can get really granular about like, no, what this really means is whether your kid is behind some of their peers or ahead of some of their peers, we're going to make sure that our teachers are equipped to serve them in their classroom environment is what this is, if I'm understanding right, is what this is really about. So I think it's helpful to be refreshed on like what this actually looks like for a student in the classroom, because I know and I'm sure others on the board are frequently hearing from specific parents with specific concerns about the extent to which their child is or isn't being served in their standard classroom environment. And so I think it's just very helpful to take those big words and break them down into like, we just want to make sure your kid's getting what they need in their classroom environment and their teacher is equipped to provide that for them. I just think it's really good to talk about it in that way. My only question is, there was something on there about the recommendation being approved, which flagged for me a process question of approved by the action team, approved by the board, like what could and would come to the board out of this action team?
So our process, it's a good question as a reminder of our process. So action teams work and they make a recommendation up to the superintendent and thus the executive leadership team. And then our team will take that recommendation and make a determination if we can approve that, if there's no need for any board approval, if there's no need for funding or a change to policy. And then if that's the case, we would approve it and then update you through this process here. If there is a need for policy or purchasing or something like that, we would bring it to you for approval after the superintendent and the executive leadership team considers a recommendation. So
that's a good reminder for us as a board that there's probably work coming out of these action teams that is amazing and phenomenal and may be included in one of these updates and may not, but also will not necessarily come into the boardroom for approval.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
And Dr. Neal has some more.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Caitlin Schulman. I'm our coordinator for belonging and engagement. And I'm here to share a little bit about our next area of work and strategy to belonging, specifically on the strategy 2.3.4. And I co-facilitate this actually with Dr. Gonzer as well. Because this action step directly highlights the importance of student voice, I thought it would be meaningful for you to hear directly from one of our students that are helping guide this work. And I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Hannah Phillips, and I'm a junior at Shawnee Mission Northwest this year.
All right. Like our last action item, we kicked off September 2024, and we've met 6 times since then. I also want to start off for me and Dr. Gonzer and thank all of our team members that have joined us. We had a strong, consistent group, and we are also excited to add some new members and continue this work this school year. Our early meetings focused on grounding ourselves in the why and unpacking the strategy 234, which reads, continue ongoing professional development for staff and increase student voice and student learning opportunities that foster a sense of belonging for all. In our first meeting, we identified what was really happening across our system and envisioned what professional learning might look like when this strategy is fully realized. In meeting 2, we continued that conversation and tried to ask, what do we want professional learning to look like in the next 5 years when it comes to belonging? And how can we intentionally incorporate student voices that align with these professional learning outcomes for belonging?
We also reviewed information from our employee experience survey that was related to belonging and professional development, which really helped give our team some direction. In our third meeting, we decided to focus on 2 key areas: building consistent belonging-focused professional development for all staff and intentionally incorporating that student voice in belonging for professional learning at both the district and the building levels. To begin, we engaged in an activity that helped define belonging content. We asked, when you think about belonging, what topics or themes fall under that umbrella? Hannah will share a little bit more about what the process looked like in action for our teams.
All right. Hi. So when I first joined the team, it was really exciting to see how everyone had different ideas on what belonging was, especially as a student, being able to hear all of the different perspectives from other students as well as teachers. It was very eye-opening to be able to hear experiences that I don't have, but also hear experiences similar to mine, and to have an adult listen to me. During one of our meetings, we all wrote down as many topics as we could think of, things like inclusivity, relationships, equity, and how we support each other as students and staff. Then we worked together to sort and group those sticky notes into bigger categories. It was interesting to see how all of our ideas were connected and how many different ways there are to build belonging. In the picture, there were a lot of sticky notes, and building this example took the whole meeting because we had so many ideas and so many things that we felt was so important for creating equity and belonging in our school. It was a very big brainstorm, and it was really exciting to hear and very eye-opening to see everyone else's perspectives on what they thought was important, especially as a student getting to hear from an adult. That's not a perspective I have, and I don't get to see every school, so it was awesome to see where everyone else sat.
So after that very busy session, we wanted to expand our data pool a little bit, and we ended up replicating this same brainstorm activity with our equity practitioner cadre. And we also surveyed them, as well as building administrators, about what PD topics have already been happening when it comes to belonging, and PD areas that they felt like their building still needed to develop. So we brought all of that back to our action team to review, reflect, and hopefully consolidate, because there was still a lot of ideas on the board. If you switch to the next slide, after that process, our team identified these 4 main buckets, is what we're calling them, or categories that have our belonging content. They are awareness and action, safe and inclusive culture, trauma-informed and responsive practices, and social-emotional learning. Every idea we collected fit into one of these areas and helped us begin a more cohesive and adaptable professional learning framework. Hannah's going to also share a little bit about the ways that we tried to connect student voices into these different areas.
So, as a student, it's been really exciting to see the adults in the district really wanting to hear what students think, because it's been talked about a lot that the adults obviously care what's going on and they want to know how we can make it better, but to be a part of something where you're actually changing something and making it a better place as a student and being able to see those changes in your environment, that's really awesome. We looked at our buckets and we talked about where students could be a part of the learning, not just sharing experiences, but actually helping teachers understand what belonging looks like and feels like from our perspective. Some schools have already done things like this. I'm a part of a group called Youth Equity Stewardship, YES for short. It's a leadership diversity group that is working in our schools individually and as a whole, as a district, to promote inclusivity and diversity in our schools and make everyone feel like they belong. So in our YES groups, we actually presented some at a professional development meeting, or the learning. You're on it. Yeah. So I actually got to teach some of the teachers at my school about what I had learned in YES. So that was really awesome, and being able to see how much they cared and having a teacher listen to you, it was also kind of funny to see how they act exactly like us. But it was a really cool experience to be able to teach something that is so important to us. Our student team members agreed that our voices could really make an impact in 2 areas: awareness and action and social emotional learning, because those are spaces where relationships, empathy, and understanding really matter. We also talked about Character Strong, since it was very new to us. I did not know anything about Character Strong till I had gone to my belonging meeting, and I learned as a student how important it is, and that is a perspective I'm grateful to have, because it is something that is so important in our schools, and it gives a lot of kids a chance to learn stuff and have to deal with coping skills and different things like that that you would never get outside of a thing like that unless you go through it on your own. And I think being able to have that support is really important. And seeing how it's really connected in our school district and what we want to work on has been really awesome.
All right, so to wrap up, we closed out last year by kind of drafting some potential learning targets and goals that fell into these 4 buckets, considering what we want all staff to know and be able to do in terms of our work with belonging, and how do we weave that student voice in to make the learning authentic and meaningful. We are excited to reconvene actually next week, and we are going to welcome new members. If you look at the next slide, we are also adding in action area 2.1.1, which is around implementing training on restorative practices for all staff to foster relationship, equitable dialogue, and address causes of conflict and harm. This connection between belonging and restorative practices feels like a powerful next step.
Okay, before you guys ask questions, I want to talk about my experience being involved in this kind of stuff. So my first experience in anything like this was when I joined YES, and YES was still very small when I joined, and realistically, I was one of the only white kids there, and I felt very out of place, which is kind of ironic. But I was really scared to be there because it was unfamiliar, and I was like, I don't know what I can do here. But after being a part of it so I started my freshman year, and after being a part of it until this year, I have learned so much, and it has really shown how important doing stuff like this is and how much it impacts our students. Seeing YES grow and being able to join opportunities like being in the 2.3.4 Action Belonging team, it really shows how much students are impactful as well as impacted. So it's been really awesome to see, and I'm really glad that I've been able to take skills I've learned in YES and skills I've learned in this action team, and also adding to the action team. It's really exciting to see what we're working on and being a part of things like this at this board meeting. So it's been really important. So thank you guys for everything. And I'm really excited to see where we go. Okay, we're open for any questions.
I just want to say how proud I am of our students and just.
Are we all beaming here?
I just want to say, if that's not a reflection of Portrait of a Graduate, right?
Thank you, Hannah. You did an amazing job. Thank you.
Well, yes, for Member Garcia.
Quick question on YES, because we've talked so much about that. And to help, I think it helps my understanding a little bit of some of the work that we do here when it comes to student voice, especially. Correct me if I'm wrong, but students can come in at any point during high school into the YES group, but do they maintain their, maybe membership's not the right word, but they're being a part of that group until they graduate, or can they choose to be done with it? Or what are some of those parameters?
It's really kind of up to the students. Most of them have obviously stuck it through since they've joined. We did have to kind of add in more of an application this last year because we filled this boardroom, and I'm just truly at capacity, like maxing out number of seats. So we've kind of built that in as a process this year, just to have a little bit more structure in terms of that. But students participate not only at the district level, but also at the building level.
So I go to Shawnee Mission Northwest, and we have 25, so we have, at my school, we have 4 kids, or I think 6 kids now, that we consider our exec. So they're the first people to go to meetings, and any like big extra meetings that we go to, like if we have a small selection, those are typically the kids that are going to go to the meetings, because they get a lot of the extra learning that they bring in, and usually they've earned their way up, and they've participated in the leadership, and they have shown a high level of leadership where they can bring it back to their schools. And so we have 25 kids who are really involved, who will come to the meetings, because that's all we can fit, because we have so many. And then so at my school we have a seminar. Our seminar is a YES seminar. So we have 60 kids in YES at our school. We have 26 kids in our seminar, and we can have kids from either all of the group, like the 60 kids, or we can have the 25 from our seminar go. Those are the ones who typically go. But it's kind of expansive for anyone who wants to join. We did like our club day, so we were advertising there. We post on our Instagram. So it is really for anyone and everyone.
Yeah. Cool. Well, knowing that information now, Ms. Schulman, my question for you, maybe even at a district level, how do we balance student voice knowing that the cycle of high school students is only 4 years and some of those transitions happen? I guess every year there's transitions that happen now that, when students graduate and move on and new kids come into the group. How do we balance taking that insight from those students, creating something only to potentially change it or redevelop it as the years go by? How do you think about some of those structures in place, just in your role and as a district? Because my goal for this question is, how do we improve when we change so much in the interests and ideas of our students who we value? How do you think about that? Loaded question, forgive me.
It's lots of things. It's not loaded. It's more of just like thinking about all of the things I want to share. So this year was what I felt like my first kicking off this year with people who have been on the program for 3 years, and then bringing in our new members. And that first meeting, I had this realization of like, oh, there's a whole group of people that don't know at all what we've experienced and what the work that this group has done. And so in many ways, letting them lead some of that story and being able to tell the work that they've been engaged in to our newer members. And also, we kicked off last spring mini sessions to each of our feeder middle schools. So we officially now have a YES group at each of our middle schools. And this was also that first year. So after I saw them all in the spring, those 8th graders are now sitting on as freshmen. So their exposure happened as 8th graders, and now they're joining their high school teams. So I think starting that transition at that middle school level up to high school, they already understand and know, what this group is about and how they're, making changes at their building level. And they're coming and sharing the things that they want to, to work on and improve and grow. And sometimes that is different at each building, but we also have overarching lessons that happen at our district meetings. I kind of joke with them that I build the days about a theme that they don't know they're learning about until at the end of the day. So like our last one was all about perspective taking, and all day long they did activities around understanding the importance of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And, we secretly figure that out at the end of the day. So there could be lessons like that, they can use and make in their own ways at their building level, whether it's middle school, high school. So I think, like I said, kind of letting them guide a little bit, but that early networking with our middle schools has been huge. It was crazy to see them at the first YES meetings at the high schools, like, oh, I remember you in 8th grade. And they're like, hey, did you come to the middle school? I was like, yeah, that was me.
Yeah, I had some kids, there were some freshmen who I recognized from when I was helping at the middle school, and they came up to us at club day and was like, oh my gosh, you're Hannah and you're Liv, and you guys were there when you taught us. And I was like, yes, we were. Also, something I wanted to add is something that I appreciate about YES is that it's ever changing. And obviously, it's going to be never changing because students are always leaving and there's always new students but the beauty of that is that there's always a new perspective on the stuff we can improve on. So I see it as it's not like, how do we improve? It's like a when do we improve? Because everyone at different times is coming in with different things. So each time someone else is there, there's always gonna be something new to improve on because everyone has so many different perspectives. And I also think with what we're doing and being able to collaborate with adults and students is where you can see like, hey, an adult thinks, hey, we're really good here, but a student is like, hey, I think we need a lot of work here. Or a student is like, hey, I think we're really good here. An adult was like, I thought we weren't doing so good here. So it's nice to see. I think it's just good that it is changing because I think that is kind of the whole thing is that you're always improving for the better, especially in a belonging sense when everything is always changing. So I kind of circled back, but I think that it's good that it's always changing because there is always going to be room for more people to come in and have a different perspective on what we need to work on.
Thank you so much, Caitlin and Hannah. That was just amazing. And Hannah, I just think you are so articulate and you have so much self-confidence. And I'm so glad that you're here and speaking
I'm so glad to be here.
On behalf of the students of Shawnee Mission and Go Cougars. So Hannah, question for you. Well, first of all, do you know what your career path looks like?
Like what I want to be?
Yeah.
I want to be a pediatric nurse.
Oh, I love that. Well, kids would be lucky to have you as their nurse. That's awesome. And then the thing that I really, like, you've really inspired me because you just really reminded me that a lot of times I think we tell kids what they need instead of asking. And if we just ask, we'll get the answer, but we have to be thoughtful and ask. And maybe we make it a goal that every board meeting or, at least once a month, we hear from the voice of a student, because I think, what you said is so impactful. So do you feel like what you shared with teachers at Northwest or the feedback that you've given to Caitlin and the strategic plan that you're a part of, do you feel like that you've made an impact in the district as a result of the feedback you've given as well as other students?
I would like to think so, yes. I have not been, I feel like, especially with the action team I'm on right now, what I'm talking for, I have not been involved in it enough to have seen like a full change, but I know with yes, I have definitely seen changes in our school. And I think the biggest part of the change is more so the discussions leading up to what we're doing, because we haven't fully had anything implemented yet. So like being able, especially with what you said, is like asking our students. Something that I remember bringing up at one of the meetings was when, at least for me, when I have a relationship with a teacher rather than a transactional interaction, like if instead of it being transactional with the teacher, I feel way more belonging. Like I feel like I want to be in that classroom, and I've had some teachers that have been phenomenal and I could have a conversation with them and I feel like I belong in that classroom, and like even if I don't love what I'm learning, that is still a place I want to be and I look forward to because I feel appreciated and I feel valued. And I've also had teachers who it's a very transactional relationship, and even if it's a class I love, I'm not excited to go to that class because I don't feel like, if there's not that personal aspect to it, you're not getting as much out of it. So I think being able to have those conversations and also talk about things like that in the professional development learning when I'm teaching, I think being able to have those conversations will, if you hear it from a student, I think it's different than hearing it from an adult. So hearing a student come up with that, I think I've definitely had teachers like ask questions, or like if they've heard me speak at the professional development, they'll come up to me and ask me questions at my school, even if it's not at a meeting or anything. So even though there's not a necessary like visual change that I'm seeing, I do think that it sticks with teachers, and I think that it's important for them to have that understanding and to have that perspective, especially since I don't know how new the student voice is, but I do know that we're doing it more and more, at least in my school each year. So I think being a part of that and seeing kind of the transition from where we started to where we are, I think there's definitely an effort from teachers. So I think, I would like to say yes.
I think that's awesome. Thank you for your thoughtfulness in that. And I love that you want to be a pediatric nurse, and maybe you should also think about education.
I have, definitely, I've thought about that, yes.
Can I piggyback off of something you just said in terms of professional development? Reading 2.34, continue ongoing professional development for staff. And then the next part of that is an increased student voice. And I was trying to figure out how those were connected for that. My question, I guess, is that professional development meant for what you just said, like building relationships with students to increase that voice? Or what does that professional development look like in regards to that action team? Can you tell me more about that?
I think you just felt what we were doing when we were unpacking the strategy, because those were two kind of different areas that we were battling. And having kids being part of this group, we did a lot of explaining terminology in terms of professional development. I think our first meeting, we said PD, I don't even know, probably 50 times. And finally, one student was like, "What's PD?" And I was like, "We need to go back."
I had to ask her what RTI meant earlier. I was like, what does that mean?
So I think when we were breaking down our strategy, the best example that I could give that what it looks like in play is Northwest YES students have presented at 2 PD days so far this year. One was about the Say Something protocol, and then the other one was a scenario activity about kind of building relationships with different kinds of kids and the impact that could have. So the kids wrote the scenarios and they presented it to the staff completely. Their sponsor was there and helped facilitate, but it was completely student-led section of learning.
Okay, that's great. That I didn't realize that's what it was. Has that been helpful to staff across the district? Do we hear feedback from our staff about the impact of that?
Yes, that is the most meaningful. We also just had belonging teams here last week, and we had students that joined for a session actually about connections and relationships. And the only feedback, really, I mean, there was a lot of great feedback, but the most feedback was around hearing from students and getting their perspective. And it wasn't just a panel, like they led the whole session about the impact of relationships.
Great work.
I want to end with this comment, and maybe Mario and David they weren't here. But for the rest of the board members, the last 2 or 3 times that we've had either yes or the members of the belonging or Caitlin, you here, the students that were a part of that presentation like tonight were phenomenal. They were scared. They were, it was a new thing to them, but we learned so much just from listening to you. And I see a direct path or possible link for you all to consider with including us as board members, maybe at the middle school sessions or rotating the board members to attend seminars. I'm sure none of us would say no and putting us all on the spot, but please consider that, because we get as much joy and learn as much from learning from listening to the students as well. But I think the last 2 or 3 times that we've had yes or members of the belonging committee here that had youth, we both were like, all of us were from the dais were like, yeah, there's something to this. So we thank you for your time.
I will put a little pitch out there that the students are hosting a conference on November 17th. It is a completely student-planned, created, developed, and led conference, and it is being hosted at K-State Olathe. I can share more details.
Send that to Shelley so she can put it on her board calendar.
Who's the keynote?
That's great.
And then we have a really, really good keynote speaker, too. Might be sitting up
Is
there.
it Hannah?
They're going to wish it was Hannah.
One of them.
Okay, a quick question for Hannah, for you, a quick question. You make this program so remarkably attractive. Are students in general attracted to participation, Or is there some measure of recruitment that is necessary in order to get student involvement? What's your candid answer to that
Are
question?
you saying in high school in general, like are students attracted to join things like this? Or?
The YES program in particular.
When kids understand what it is, not necessarily to join it, but kids are very interested in what it is and what we do, and they want to be a part of the things that maybe we host or maybe we contribute to. For example, my school, we hosted a culture fair. We had 23 tables of kids from different cultures. They came and presented their food, and we had probably 200-300 kids show up, maybe more, honestly. We had a lot of kids show up to the different sessions. We do things during lunch, and a lot of kids participate in that, and that's kind of a chance where we get to explain who we are, what we do, what we're a part of. It does take some recruitment because it seems more complex than it is. I definitely had to ask a lot of questions when I first joined because I didn't understand what I was joining. But I think once there's that understanding and that like solid ground of who we are and what we do, I think there's a lot of kids who are really excited to join or are excited that we even have something like that. I also think some kids, just from like what I've talked to, at least at our school, like there's different levels of commitment to YES. Like I would be at the very top. And then there will also be kids who come to a meeting once or twice a month just to see what we're doing, be involved. So I think it depends on their level of like time that they're willing to commit. But I think most kids who are interested in learning about it are interested in joining and want to be involved because of what we are.
Thank you very much for your engagement and your answer.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Dr. Neal, take us home.
Thank you. If we could, just a quick thank you. I mean, the future is so bright because of our students, but also we have such amazing team members and our facilitators. Many of them are shouldering multiple action teams, so I just appreciate if we could just give them a quick thank you. Just to finish up, a quick global update. The timelines for some of our scheduled implementation for some of the action teams have been adjusted slightly, in large part because some of those teams are waiting on the work of other teams that are currently in progress before they can begin their work. But I just did want to bring that to you for transparency, and I've reflected that. Shelley, if you can go to the next. Thank you to the Gantt chart there. We update those Gantt charts, and I have those updated now online, and I have moved that scheduled implementation. I just did a quick strike through and moved that for the teams where we're adjusting that scheduling slightly so that our community sees that and recognizes that we've made that slight adjustment. And then I would just finish up by saying, we need volunteers, some additional volunteers this year and then certainly in the years to come. So if you have been inspired by what you heard tonight, take that information. The nomination form is available online on the district website, and we would welcome additional applicants and nominees, if not this year, in the years to come. So we appreciate it, and we will look forward to coming back in February with our next update.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. Great job.
Yes, yes, indeed. Then that leads us to 3.02. Where are we? Yep.
Yes, that's where we're at. So we have before you tonight last year's copy of your legislative platform and then the administrative team's initial suggestions for some red lines. We do absolutely need your feedback on that legislative platform as it is yours. So Mr. Smith and Dr. Little are here to take you through some of those suggestions, or all of those suggestions.
Good evening, Board. You noticed a wonderful example of differentiation in the difference between the way Dr. Schumacher introduced the strategic plan updates versus the legislative. We are learners. Stuart and I texted, and we're going to bring students next year. So, before we dive into the legislative platform, you all are aware that The legislature has had a special committee meeting over the summer and into the fall to talk about and study school finance. I wanted Dr. Little to talk a little bit more about that in the last meeting they had, as well as to project forward to this 2026 legislative session and what we anticipate, and then we can talk about what our platform is. So, Dr. Little.
Thank you, David. Good evening. I just wanted to talk briefly about kind of the context in which you're discussing these policy issues. So number one, there will be one more education funding task force meeting this fall. The legislative leadership met. They're going to contract out and bid on a third party to produce formula components to run a school finance formula and to have a simulator to manipulate through making changes to the formula. They're going to meet one more time, put together the criteria that they want for that, RFP it, and have somebody ready to go at some point in the future, number one. When they return in January of 26, I think in general, there's, as everyone at least is communicating, there's not going to be a lot of discussion about formula and formula components. It's going to be a very fast, brief session, focus on things like tax cuts and a couple of other issues that folks want to deal with. And we will move swiftly. And the only thing to kind of keep in your mind is that I wouldn't be surprised if the education committees don't start talking about some of the formula components, and the chair of the committee, who will be a House member in January when they change, has suggested that they may be meeting weekly during the legislative session on a Monday morning, on a Friday afternoon, where they have chunks of time. That's really super hard to pull off during a legislative session, but we'll see if it does. In general, the real transition begins when the legislative session's over, because from that date until June 30th of 2027, we're going to go back and forth about a formula. We'll probably spend a great deal of time in the summer looking at the formula, and then because a bill has to be introduced on the 1st of January 2027, according to statute. So something's got to be ready to be introduced by that point. So that's kind of the time frame. The time frame's probably spread out a little bit, and that's how things will work out as far as we can tell. We're obviously going to have policy issues and things to deal with, but that's the bigger picture for formula components.
So our expectation is that this upcoming session will, obviously won't focus on the formula, but will focus on some of the same issues that we've been dealing with. Unfortunately, I know you all are aware that much of our work has been defensive in nature, working to prevent things that would be harmful to students in Shawnee Mission and other places from happening. As you know, we have 4 areas within our school, our legislative platform: support for rigorous academic standards for all students, school finance, health, safety, and social and emotional well-being, and support for public schools. Many of the things are similar to things that have been in our platform in previous years. I'll highlight under support for rigorous academic standards for all students. We have support for broad local board authority to manage curriculum and learning materials within state guidance and standards. That's something that we fight every year, attempts to remove authority that you currently have, and that is given to you by the state constitution in terms of determining curricular things that we do in this district and in this community. And so that's something we will fight for. Under school finance, we did add a section which says, in terms of supporting the authority of the Kansas Constitution, it includes maintaining the current system for selecting justices of the Supreme Court. And that's something that will come up for a vote, and we believe very strongly that we have been able to make significant progress as a state in education because of the willingness of the Supreme Court to hold the legislature to what is in the state constitution. And there is significant concern that a change in how we select Supreme Court members will dilute their willingness to hold to the Constitution. So that's going to be very important for us to advocate for. Under the issue of health, safety, and social and emotional well-being, we did remove a section, state law caused KSHA, the Kansas State High School Athletics Association, to change some of their policies, and we would not advocate for the policy change that they made, so we have removed a section from this platform. And then under support for public schools, we will continue to advocate for public dollars for public schools and for schools that are governed by public bodies such as yours in this community. And we'll advocate against any of the many different ways that people are attempting to give money to private entities that is indeed public money. And also, we will fight that any public money, any money that is public money, needs to have the same standards of accountability that this board functions under. We would stand for any questions that you have on the legislative agenda.
And just as a matter of process, we want to make sure we emphasize that this is a first read. We certainly need your input on your legislative platform. So, process.
I think the changes that are there are minimal and make sense, so I appreciate you guys doing the work on the front end so that we're not up here wordsmithing on small things. So that's appreciated. I do have kind of a larger question, and it's actually more for the dais itself, maybe not necessarily for you both, but would need input potentially from everyone. I feel like we're fighting multiple fronts if we're doing defensive work here. And with KASB no longer being with the National Association of School Boards and currently working on drafting their own federal legislative platform that's more aligned, like just very specifically to Kansas. And with things that have been happening at the federal level, in which Shawnee Mission should certainly be communicating our position on things potentially to our federal delegation with regards to, like, say, the U.S. Department of Education or the Office of Special Education Programming. I think there's merit to potentially having a smaller accompanying platform related to federal legislation issues, so that when perhaps something comes up late at night on a weekend, like the complete elimination of the Office of Special Education Programming, our superintendent or Stuart or David could work quickly, knowing that they have a policy platform that we've already reviewed, concurred on, and voted on, because that gives clear direction if something were to come up. I just see that being able to immediately reach out to the federal delegation. And then with the proposed potential for a redistricting vote this upcoming week in November, I think that redistricting specifically Congressional District 3, which is what is at issue, potentially to split us up in a way that disunites the county. So they would be running potentially Johnson County along with like into three districts as opposed to our geographic area of interest. And we have, I think, kind of always consistently tried to work in partnership with the other Johnson County school districts, because we do have very similar interests when we advocate for public education as a county as a whole. I mean, we're all somewhat different. We all have somewhat different, weightings or needs, but we all likely need for there to be an Office of Special Education Programming. So this is bigger than just, this. It's broader, and it's potentially more work, but I do think that there might be merit in putting together like a small one-pager addendum to the end of this that just states, we support public education as an area of interest in Johnson County, and then that would allow, for us to submit something. If the special session is called next week, it would be submitting things to the Johnson County delegation to say, we would like to continue to be a delegation. Don't split us up. But, so I'm throwing this out there. It's a larger topic. I apologize for raising something meeting now, but it seemed the appropriate place to do it. Because our state platform, we're fairly familiar with the players and the issues that are coming. We've kind of consistently supported public education in the ways that we've done so in this platform for the last few years. So I feel like we're pretty good on that page there, and I feel like we're going to knock this out pretty quick, but would just like to throw out there some potentials for just a little bit of additional work.
I was just kind of reading through it. I'm sorry.
Nope, go for it.
Madam President. I don't even, it might even just need like a read to see if it's applicable. I mean, because I think of the impact of federal policy, I appreciate your comments and observations, and it might just be a read. I don't know if this is necessarily written in a way that is just restrictive to state policy. And, you know, I just kind of was looking over, and it might not require a second addendum as much as a
Right.
read to see if it's speaking to state, federal.
And even if it's just putting a caveat in there to say that this would apply to being able to provide that sort of advocacy level at the federal level, so that if there is an issue of importance that we need to be sending a communication on,
it's clear.
our award-winning communications team can get right on that. With the help of with our superintendent and lobbyist.
Dr. Little, do you have a strong opinion on that, of whether or not it's best approached through an addendum or through a purposeful attempt at making sure that it both addresses the federal and the state level with what we have here? I know KSB added a federal piece this year, didn't they, to their platform?
We haven't.
Well,
We haven't,
draft,
yeah, it's in track changes, but it's slightly different. We've always had it, but we've always followed the National Association of School Boards policy positions, and that meant, you know, really kind of focusing on like the one or two main issues that impacted public education throughout the country.
Right. Thank you.
You asked, obviously, it's at your discretion how you want to do
Sure.
this. I think the message is going to the same people, so maybe one document is sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, do we know the timeline for the KASB federal platform?
I mean, it's at this.
It'll be in
coming convention,
November.
yeah.
I mean, I do think there's value in like not having to start from scratch on something. So whether it's taking KASBs and then revising it from there, or putting a different lens on this platform so that it can be used in multiple contexts with multiple jurisdictions, I think either of those would be great solutions. I don't think we want to start from scratch.
No, and I'm not wanting to do a whole lot of heavy lifting. In part, the federal policy for KASB is, we deemed this to be like the kickoff year sort of thing. So it's not necessarily going to be as detailed or in-depth as it might be in subsequent years when we've had a chance to develop it further. I'm just wanting to make sure that we have provided enough in whatever it is that we end up with to authorize our leadership team to advocate for the things that the district needs to the federal delegation. Because advocating at the state level is one thing, but then when you're communicating to both Senators Moran and Marshall and potentially 3 different Congress people, if the split goes through, we just want to make sure that they're speaking with the voice and authority of the board so that they have that cover and protection.
I appreciate that.
Would that be helpful to you guys, David and Mike, as the ones who have to
Yes.
carry our voice into these places?
100%. I mean, we can think of instances last year in which we had to make some decisions and some statements, and it would have been very helpful to be able to point to, and we did to some extent, but to be more explicit about it, I think would be very helpful to us. So yes.
Yes.
I just want to add, I appreciate the inclusion of the kind of the call out to the constitutional amendment that we'll be looking at next year on the merit-based selection of the Supreme Court. So I appreciate the inclusion of that. And then just the focus on the work of the state legislatures, the Education Funding Task Force, both really important to viability of our public schools and the opportunities that we can provide our students.
Any others? So Mr. Westbrook?
I would just add, I agree with what Heather has just observed about the federal piece, and I just want to make sure that the superintendent and his team and you, as our lobbyists, are empowered with the ability to respond quickly when things like that might happen. We do have a relationship with the federal government, and we're not the ones who would be lobbying with the federal government aggressively, but I think we do take a position there that would be helpful for you to know you have our support in lobbying for us.
So I would ask you to each to take a really good look at this between now and the next meeting and provide any suggested updates, questions for clarification, so we can have that final, hopefully final second read for you on November 10th.
Do we have clear next steps on the federal agenda? I just want to make sure we don't have a productive conversation here and leave it here.
One more time, I'm sorry.
What are our next steps on coming up with a federal agenda?
I think I heard that we want to embed our beliefs into this platform itself.
Okay, so we'll update this
So that it would
with the
apply to
perspective
multiple
of-
jurisdictions, yeah.
Great, I love that idea, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was robust and deep critical thinking.
You ready for some more?
In there. I know,
Okay.
right? Leads us to 3.03, the Kansas Assessment Data Update.
So we have Dr. Dan Grumman here to share with you our annual fall assessments, and Ms. Pam Lewis, our Associate Superintendent of Leadership and Learning. There are several slides here, guys, but there is no fluff. All of these are important slides, and it is a brand-new assessment this year, so we want to make sure that you and our community understands what it is telling us. So without further ado, Ms. Lewis.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to share our fall assessment overview. I want to begin by connecting our overview to two of the objectives of our strategic plan. Those are a personalized learning plan for all students and preparing our students for college and career readiness. And so we know that one component in measuring our students' progress towards these two objectives is through benchmark testing and looking at our summative assessments. And Dr. Grumman will spend the presentation guiding us in understanding specific assessments and sharing system-wide student achievement data. Our presentation this evening also aligns with our SMSD wildly important goal number 1 of increasing the achievement of all students by implementing our response to intervention framework. And so the assessments we discussed this evening, the Kansas State assessments, the iReady benchmark diagnostic assessment, and Acadience assessment are all lag measures we use to monitor our progress in meeting this district wildly important goal. So I'm going to hand it over to the one and only Dr. Grumman, who's going to take you through the roadmap and guide you through our fall assessment overview.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. An earlier version of this, I did have a series of dad jokes integrated in here, but you want to make it home by halftime, I suppose. I took them out. So thank you, Mrs. Lewis and Dr. Schumacher, Madam President, members of the board. Good evening, everyone. As Mrs. Lewis noted, tonight I'm going to provide an update on a variety of assessments, beginning with some context surrounding the latest Kansas assessment performance levels. We'll then take a brief look on how Shawnee Mission students performed on the 2025 Kansas assessments in relation to statewide averages. Kansas assessments are one of multiple measures of student academic performance, so we're also going to take a brief journey through just a few of those additional measures, including the iReady diagnostic assessments in mathematics, NWA MAP assessments in reading, the Acadience assessments in early literacy, and early numeracy. Very brief overlooks with each of those. And then also near the end of this presentation, I'll share a crosswalk showing the relationship between the Kansas assessment results and some of those corresponding percentiles or levels on NWEA, iReady, and Acadience assessments. So the state board's commitment to developing revised state assessments in 2025 really began back in 2019, and because developing or revising a large-scale assessment system does take a lot of time and resources, from unpacking standards to developing all new items aligned to those standards. And those test items need to pass through a rigorous process of item review, bias testing, and field testing before they can become an operational item on the summative assessment. There's a lot of work and resources that go into this type of development. In recent years, knowing that a revised assessment was on the horizon, our educators and advisory groups have had a chance to offer recommendations to improve the assessment system. For example, text-to-speech is now a universal feature to all students on the Kansas assessments in mathematics and science. It used to be only available to students who met certain criteria in mathematics. We also had the opportunity to provide focus and direction with the way in which the results are used and interpreted More specifically, this slide highlights recommendations from the Kansas Assessment Advisory Council in relation to the performance level descriptors and the process for setting those new cut scores that you're going to see this year. These recommendations, which were presented to the State Board back in April, were to embrace the term proficient within our 4 levels, as it's already hard-coded into the national language, as well as within federal and state regulations. They have also sought to improve clarity in what the assessments measure and don't measure. There had been problems with some vertical alignment from one grade level to the next that also contributed to some of the ambiguity in the assessment results that we'd been living with for the prior 10 years. And ultimately, the field has been asking in a variety of ways that we correct a misaligned system. And I'm going to provide some additional context of what we were looking at in those prior years. So here's one of those examples of how the previous assessment was misaligned, and that is in the assessment administered from 2015 to 2024, about 20 to 30% of students scored at or above level 3 on the 10th grade reading or math assessment. This was the level where students were presumably ready for post-secondary success. However, when we would evaluate actual success through the lens of being persistent throughout at least 2 years of college, that percentage was almost twice what the state assessment was telling us. We also saw this misalignment when we compared the state assessment results with those other assessments, such as the NWA MAP. According to those alignments, to like NWA's alignment study, an eighth grade student would have to score at or above the 75th percentile to be on track to score at or above level 3 on that previous state assessment in ELA. However, on almost every other assessment, a student would not typically be considered at risk when they scored somewhere above the 40th percentile. So again, wildly different perspectives on these assessments. And that's not what we expect these two assessments, and it's not that we expect these two assessments to align perfectly. The problem has been in that in many points of intersection, the Kansas assessment had just been so wildly different from all the other data at our disposal for evaluating student success. In response to these challenges and recommendations, the State Board voted in May in favor of changing how we describe the 4 performance levels. The prior system used the terms limited, basic, effective, excellent, and post-secondary readiness, which did create some confusion statewide and even some ambiguity, right? With the new performance levels, the board is bringing back greater clarity about what the assessments measure. A student scoring at level 1 show a limited ability to demonstrate their knowledge and skills of grade level standards. Okay? Student scoring at level 2 shows a basic ability to demonstrate their knowledge and skills of grade level standards. A student scoring at level 3 shows a proficient ability to demonstrate their knowledge and skills of grade level standards, and a student scoring at level 4 shows an advanced ability. When I mentioned the vertical alignment issues from the previous cut scores, this is what I was referring to. You might not see this if you're in a specific school looking at a specific grade level, but when I've looked at data across grade levels, say from a statewide perspective, in this case, this is what we're looking at. In our prior statewide data in ELA, we would see that percent of students scoring at level 1 change drastically from 31% at grade 3 to 18% at grade 4, and then abruptly jump back to 32% at grade 5. And we'd also see the percent of students scoring at or above level 3 jump from 32% at grade 7 down to 22% in grade 8 and back up to 28% in grade 10. So we'd get this sort of zigzagging pattern from one grade level to the next. Having these erratic fluctuations created, again, that ambiguity in how we interpreted each of those performance levels. The implications for scoring at a particular performance level could vary tremendously depending on which grade level test the student completed. So here's the after. This is statewide data again. Okay? When we look at statewide data in ELA across all grade levels this year from 2025, we have much greater consistency. For example, the percent of students scoring at level 1 statewide is somewhere between 27 and 29%. So when we say that a student scoring at level 1 has a limited ability to demonstrate their knowledge and skills of grade level standards, the meaning of limited feels like it might mean the same thing across all of these grade levels. The statewide percentages of students scoring at or above level 3 or proficient has more variance than what what I would personally prefer to see, but that range, either way, generally stair steps somewhat unevenly from a high of approximately 53% at grade 3 to a low of approximately 38% at grade 10. But you do see more of a stair step pattern rather than that zigzagging that we had in the older system. Again, here's the before picture with math related to statewide data. And again, we see that percent of students scoring at levels, had been scoring at level 1, changing that giant sawtooth pattern from 23 and 20% at grades 3 and 4 to 34 and 36% at grades 5 and 6, and then down to 24% at grade 7, and then back up to 46% at grades 8 and 10. So it was, again, it really, I think, added to some of the conversations that that we sort of felt the frustration in the old performance levels. And finally, with the statewide results in math from 2025, we see a much more consistent pattern from one grade level to the next. So from a statewide perspective, we know that approximately 28% of students scored at level 1, and around 40% or so of students scored at above level 3, again with that somewhat irregular stair-step pattern moving from grade 3 to grade 10. And now finally, we get to see how Shawnee Mission students performed on the Kansas assessments in 2025. This graph shows the percent of students who scored at or above the proficient level, level 3 on their state assessments in English language arts. In other words, these students scored at level 3 or level 4. The blue bars are Shawnee Mission results. The gray bars are statewide results. At grade 3, the percent proficient for Shawnee Mission was 60.2%. The corresponding statewide number is 51.9. At grade 4, 61.7% for Shawnee Mission versus 49.2% statewide. Looking further to the right at grade 10, Shawnee Mission percent proficient overall was 47.6 versus the state's 37.9% proficient. I'm sorry, that's grade 10. And then across all grade levels, 57.2% of students scored at or above proficient, while the statewide percentage was 44.5. Our goal moving forward, of course, is to increase that percent of students scoring at or above proficient across all grade levels. I added a small curly brace on the right-hand side. It might look a little strange because like it was a mistake over there, but that is there to help me remember to point out that on a later slide, we'll be comparing this distance between Shawnee Mission percent proficient and the statewide percent from this year with the corresponding difference between district and state in 2024. On the other side of the scale, this graph shows the percent of students who scored at level 1, the limited level, on the Kansas assessments in English language arts. The dark blue bars are for Shawnee Mission. The light gray bars are statewide percentages. Of course, with level 1, we want to see our district percentages to be lower than the state average or the statewide percentages. And across all grade levels, approximately 20% of Shawnee Mission students scored at level 1 in ELA. By comparison, about 28% of students scored at level 1 statewide. This graph shows the percent of students who scored at or above proficient on the Kansas assessments in mathematics. Again, the blue bars are Shawnee Mission results and the gray are statewide results. Overall, on the far right side, 52.6% of Shawnee Mission students scored at or above the proficient level, while statewide, 38.7% of students scored at or above proficient. Again, that bracket on the right signifies that our percent proficient was approximately 14% higher than the state, and we'll see some comparative data here in a minute. Again, the goal moving forward is to increase the percentage of students scoring at or above proficient across all grade levels. This graph shows the percent of students who scored at that level 1 on the Kansas assessments in math. The dark blue bars are for Shawnee Mission. The light gray bars are statewide averages. Again, with level 1, we want to see our district percentages to be lower than those statewide percentages, which they are. Across all grade levels, approximately 19% of Shawnee Mission students scored at level 1 in mathematics. By comparison, 29% of students scored at that level 1 statewide. With the revisions of the assessments in 2025, along with new scale scores and cut scores, results from 2025 are not easily comparable with the prior 2024 assessments. However, One way that we sort of use to evaluate where we landed in 2025 compared to 2024 is to check that difference between the district and state results in both of those years. And so those are the bars that we're looking at here. So this is how we set one of our wildly important goals or WIGs from last year in relation to state assessments. So as we move from left to right, in 2024, the Shawnee Mission percentage of students in level 3 and level 4 for ELA was 12.2 points higher than the state percentage. In 2025, the difference between Shawnee Mission and the corresponding state percentage increased to 12.8 percentage point difference. Okay, and then math, those are the green bars. The Shawnee Mission percentage of students at level 3 and 4 was 12.4 points higher than the state average in 2024. In 2025, that difference between Shawnee Mission and the corresponding state percentage increased to 13.8% difference. So we've distanced ourselves from the state average from 2024 to 2025 in those corresponding years, which points to somewhat of a success from across those two assessment years. Kansas assessments, of course, aren't the only assessments that our students have been working hard on since last spring. And they serve as one of multiple measures that we use to personalize instruction, measure student progress, and evaluate programs. So another assessment in this mix is that iReady diagnostic for mathematics. As you might recall, the board adopted iReady as the core math resource for grades 6 through 8 beginning in the 2025 school year, last year, and then this year in K through 5. The iReady diagnostic is their item-level computer adaptive nationally normed assessment that comes with that resource. The iReady assessment is administered three times per year currently in grades K through 8. Since we now have 2 years worth of data at the middle level, this is a quick snapshot of 2 cohorts of students. The top graph shows the percentile distribution of 6th graders from last year, and then that second graph right below it is the graph that shows the percentile distribution of 7th graders from this year. So that first cohort where you're looking at, those first 2 bars, are from 6th graders last fall to 7th graders this fall. The bottom 2 graphs show the cohort movement from 7th grade in the fall of last year to 8th grade in the fall of this year. So both of these represent 2 cohorts of roughly the same students, or 90% of them typically would be the same students moving from one year to the next. We can follow comparative points from one graph to the next in several different places. For example, last year in the fall of 6th grade, 73% of students scored above the 40th percentile. That's a gray bar that you kind of noticed. This year, as 7th graders, 75% of them are scoring above the 40th percentile. We also see that the percent of students scoring above the 80th percentile, that purple section on the right-hand side, increased from 29.9% to 34.7%. We see similar movement in the cohort from grade 7 to grade 8. The percent of students scoring above that 40th percentile mark went from 70% in 7th grade to 72% as 8th graders this year. And the percent of students scoring above the 60th percentile, the blue and purple combined, also increased. Since this is the first year for testing with iReady in grades K through 5, we don't quite have that cohort movement results yet, but here is a snapshot of student performance across all grade levels this fall. In most grade levels, somewhere between that 70 and 75% of students scored above the 40th percentile. We're keeping an eye on first grade, as it does kind of stand out as an exception. At first grade, approximately 66% of students scored above that 40th percentile line. It is an online adaptive assessment, which can be a factor in when students are taking the assessment along the way. But definitely students are fairly consistent in how they perform on the iReady assessment this fall. Next, we'll take a quick look at NWA MAP reading assessments for this fall compared to last year in a similar cohort movement. Again, as a reminder, the NWA MAP tests are also an item-level adaptive assessment, nationally normed for status and growth. And this is, I think it's our 20th year administering NWA MAP assessments. Similar to what I did with the iReady data, we're looking at a 2-year cohort. In this pair of bars, we see fall results from 2nd grade last year and then 3rd grade this year. It doesn't matter which section you look at, we see increases in all spots on in this pair of bars. For example, the percentage of students scoring above the 80th percentile increased from 27.6 to 31.2. Percent of students scoring above the 40th percentile gained almost 8%. And the percent of students scoring below the 20th percentile decreased by 4% from grade 2 to grade 3. So there's a lot of movement happening with this cohort of students going from grade 2 to grade 3. Here we have cohorts from grade 3 last year to grade 4 this fall, and also grade 4 to grade 5. The grade 3 to grade 4 cohort is a little more tempered, I would say. For example, the percentage of students scoring above the 40th percentile and above the 60th percentile increased by 1 to 2%, while the students above the 80th percentile decreased slightly. In the cohort movement from grade 4 to grade 5, we again see gains at all levels similar to the pattern that we saw from grade 2 to grade 3. Here we have cohorts from grade 5 last year to grade 6, and then grade 6 to grade 7. Both of these reveal that same pattern with increases in the percentage of students scoring above the 40th, the 60th, and the 80th percentiles, and decreases in the percentage of the students going below the 20th percentile. So lots of movement here in these two sets of data. And finally, we have grade 7 to grade 8 last year and this year, and then also grade 8 to grade 9. Our middle school data can be a little stubborn, but on the positive side, we see a decrease in the percentage of students scoring below the 20th percentile, indicating that students who are most at risk in reading declined from last year to this year in those respective cohorts. And I want to kind of revisit the conversation about the RTI model and the importance of high-quality instructional materials, high-quality Tier 1 instruction, and then keeping the percentage of students who require Tier 3 support as small as possible. And this is some of that evidence that the RTI process works. Okay. So again, looking at the final two graphs at the bottom, we are seeing positive movement across all percentile bands from 8th grade to 9th grade in both of these in both of these places and overall in our MAP data. Our final assessment snapshot from this fall is from the Acadience probes in literacy and math. Acadience, previously known as DIBELS, if you've been around as long as I have. We've also used this assessments for just over 20 years. Acadience consists of a series of timed probes that measure foundational skills in literacy and numeracy. Most of the probes are administered one-on-one, so it really complements the other assessments pretty well. These are criterion reference assessments, for example, so they're not nationally normed, so we wouldn't typically represent this data in terms of percentiles. Rather, students are at or above benchmark, below benchmark, or well below benchmark. So we're looking at performance levels again in this data. Here we see the percent of students at each of those three levels for literacy and grades K through 2 combined. The percent of students scoring at benchmark in the fall of each of the last 3 years has gradually and steadily increased from 57% 2 years ago to 61.7% last year, and now to 63.2% this year. And at the same time, the students scoring well below benchmark has decreased from 29.1% 2 years ago to 25% this fall. Acadience literacy results for grades 3 through 6 show similar increases over the last 3 years in the percent of students scoring at or above benchmark. So the percent of students scoring at or above benchmark 2 years ago was 68.6%. This year it's up to 70.9%. And again, we see incremental decreases in the percents of students scoring well below benchmark, where we are at 18.1% this fall in grades 3 through 6 for literacy. Finally, Acadience numeracy results in grades K through 2 are showing similar gains as those early literacy measures. We only and we're only going to see K through 2 on the numeracy side because we make it's optional in grades 3 through 6 for this particular measure. The percent of students scoring at or above benchmark in the fall has steadily increased from 63.5% to 65.7%, and now 66.4% at or above benchmark. And at the same time, the percent of students scoring well below benchmark has steadily decreased from 19.6% 2 years ago to 16.9% this year. So in my final segment of the data review, we're going to look at the relationship between the most recent state assessment results and our local assessments, iReady, NWA MAP, and Acadience. This table shows the relationship between NWA MAP percentiles in reading and the Kansas Assessment Program performance levels in ELA for grades 3 through 8 using the spring scores in both cases. So my results are based on Shawnee Mission data. The assessment vendors will often do their own alignment studies using larger data sets, but I'm reasonably confident that we'd have similar results. There might be some slight differences in some of their percentiles. One celebration I have with this new assessment is the consistency from one grade level to the next in this alignment. Okay? For instance, in third grade, students scoring at or above the 52nd percentile would be considered on track for scoring at or above proficient on the state assessment. In fourth grade, it's 55%, the 55th percentile. Grade 6 is the 57th percentile. So as I look across all grade levels, I could generally say, without having to qualify which grade level they were in, that a student around the 55th percentile or higher would be on track to score at or above proficient, regardless of those grade levels again. That same applies to predictions between level 1 and level 2. And in general, the boundary between 1 and 2 equates to around that 25th percentile. There's a little bit of a stair step moving upwards, but it's a much simpler and easier conversation to be able to have some consistency across grade levels in this manner. This table shows the relationship between either NWA MAP Math or iReady MAP percentiles, depending on the grade level, and the Kansas Assessment Performance levels in math. Again, I would say in general, students scoring around that 60th percentile on the NWEA or iReady Math assessments are on track to score at or above proficient on the state assessments. The little anomaly I see at grade 5, where the boundary shows 53%, and then grade 6 at the 69th percentile, but I think these will draw closer together when I rerun the data after combining another year or two of the assessment results. Still reasonably confident it's somewhere in that range of the 60th percentile for level 3. Moving on to Acadience and the Kansas assessment results in English language arts. This table shows the relationship between performance on third grade Acadience literacy in the spring and their corresponding performance on the state assessment. Among the students who scored well above benchmark on Acadience literacy, 90% of those students scored at or above proficient on the state assessments. And among the students who scored at benchmark, 56% scored at or above proficient, 34% scored at level 2. And among the students who scored below benchmark in grade 3, 33% scored at or above proficient, 35% in level 2, and 32% in level 1. And among the students who scored well below benchmark on Acadience literacy, 78% scored at level 1. So what we're seeing here is consistent with the NWA MAP results, because I also know from some other analysis that the lower boundary for benchmark on Acadience literacy is closer to that 40th percentile line if I was trying to sort of crosswalk our NWA MAP data, and as well as that above benchmark, that corresponds to somewhere in the ballpark of that 80th percentile. But we still see a correlation between grade 3 Acadience literacy and our state assessment results. This table shows Acadience literacy and Kansas ELA assessments for grade 4. And again, what I like here is that the data picture is nearly the same as it was for grade 3. So we can have the same conversation for 3 and 4. Among students scoring well above benchmark, almost 90% scored at or above proficient. At benchmark, 57% scored at or above proficient. When below benchmark, 1/3 scored proficient and 40% scored at level 2. And when students are performing well below benchmark on Acadience literacy measures, 85% scored at level 1. Here's grade 5. Again, the slide shows Acadience and CAP ELA correspondence it being very similar to the picture that we saw in grades 3 and 4. And here are the results in grade 6. There are some minor differences I see in the alignment with 6th grade, but I think it does have a little bit to do with where the benchmark cut values are set on the cadence at grade 6. And in grades 3, 4, and 5, when students, for example, in grades 3, 4, and 5, when students scored below benchmark, approximately 1/3 of those students scored at or above proficient, whereas in grade 6, that number is 17%. So it's a little different here. Overall, though, the good news is that, again, that correspondence between our district assessments and Kansas assessments are much more consistent from one grade level to the next compared to the cut scores that were in place in that previous 10 years. So here's some key takeaways. 1, Kansas assessment results are a new baseline. 57% of Shawnee Mission students scored at or above proficient in ELA. 53% of Shawnee Mission students scored at or above proficient in math. In both ELA and math, Shawnee Mission students outperformed their statewide peers across all grade levels. The new performance levels and cut scores, while still aspirational, are better aligned with our local assessments compared to their prior system, making them more useful in communicating with parents, family, and our community. The revised Kansas assessment program provides greater clarity about our students' ability to demonstrate their knowledge and skills of grade level standards. Our fall assessment cohort results in the form of iReady, NWA MAP, and Acadience all point to incremental improvements in academic success, and I'm very optimistic about the direction of that our students are moving in academically right now.
So we want to look forward and highlight a few of our next steps. We are going to continue to support the implementation of our iReady math resource and assessments K through 8. So it'll be exciting to be able to compare more of that data since we'll have that at all grade levels. And then utilize that iReady MyPath, and that's the platform that personalizes learning for students. We can actually look at the progress of students meeting towards their individual goals, as well as what we call stretch goals. So that's a big piece of training for our staff and then utilizing that data to plan instruction for our students. We also continue to support and put an emphasis on using the Kansas Assessment Prep mini tests and using those as common formative assessments with our professional learning communities and our grade level teams, and really using that data to plan for instruction. So another formative assessment there. We're continuing to our ongoing implementation of structured walkthroughs. I'm really excited to report that we really kicked that off in September and October. We gave principals the opportunity to decide, what that training was going to look like and when that was going to be for their staff in relation to other professional learning needs. But everybody was kicking that off by the end of September, and we already have 1,463 instructional walkthroughs across the district. And we're having our first district data review this week with our principals and providing them a protocol that they can take back to review building data with their staff. So we're really excited about that. And then we're going to continue to monitor student progress through our lead and lag measures for our wildly important goals, a few of those that were mentioned tonight. And then another piece is to continue to monitor the correlations and interpretations of our NWEA MAP and iReady results, the math iReady, so that we can really see what those results look like and how we can compare and reevaluate next year's assessment footprint. We're always reflecting on that testing footprint and how we are using each assessment to impact instruction and measure student progress. And so after having iReady implemented K through 8, it will be another conversation as teachers are continuing to build their capacity around using the data that we have as part of iReady. And then I want to bring us back to knowing that, we know that formative and summative assessments are critical in measuring student academic progress and the mastery of standards, and that is one component in measuring our student progress. But in Shawnee Mission, I want to bring us back to the portrait of a graduate because student success is more than a test score. Our expectation is for our students to reach our strategic plan objectives, to have a personalized learning plan, and to be college and career ready, and have the interpersonal skills to be successful successful in life. And so this is exemplified in our district portrait of a graduate and the learning opportunities in and out of our classrooms and every day. And while this evening we focused on assessments and the continued progress that we see, in a future meeting we look forward to from the learning team and excited to share our story with our students' learning experiences that prepare them with their portrait of a graduate skills for college, career, and life success. And that will be a follow-up in February. And so I want to thank Dr. Grumman for all his preparation with the presentation tonight, and we are available for any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, both of you. Let me look to my right, to my left. Okay, just.
I'm going to do a pun here and say I'm going to try to go swiftly. And my chief question.
Oh, wow.
You guys ready? You guys ready?
Wow.
You guys ready?
Good
It's going on. It's going on. I'm just saying. What I think I've gathered before is the Kansas assessment obviously is something we are required to do. It is clearly a summative assessment. I don't hear you guys or educators talking about the value of it in tweaking day-to-day instruction because of the nature of that assessment. But what I am hearing is that some of these tweaks that have been made at the state level are going to make it a little bit more useful to us as a district and more closely aligned with the formative assessments we're already using. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, and to that, I think the important part I'm going to go back to, Pam mentioned mini tests. So the actual summative assessment is a little bit smaller. There's only about 40 operational items. So that assessment in and of itself is not what's going to inform the instructional component. It's the formative assessments that we leverage along the way in combination with high-quality instructional materials, and all the things that get wrapped into the RTI process. So, I mean, by the time a student reaches that summative assessment, we should already have a pretty good idea how that student is going to perform. There should be no surprises. And so it's really making sure that we have that system built into it. And that's one of the sort of the underlying things that I didn't really talk about in the presentation part of it is that part of what it leads to those positive results and movement in that summative are all the things that that we do beginning in August. I'm going to use a cross-country analogy, I guess. It's the summer running that wins your state championship, right? That's what we're looking at from an education standpoint, too.
And I would just flip it, too, that we are looking for predictive ways in which we can adjust instruction throughout the course of the year so that we can perform well on that summative assessment. We should not be surprised as to how our students perform. We should, whether it be through NWA MAP, iReady, Acadians, you name it, common formative assessments, are they going to be predictive of success on the state assessment that's summative?
Thank you. That's really helpful.
David, Westbrook?
Question. First of all, I appreciate all of this extraordinary work, and it's very, very, very thorough and very transparent, very accountable. My takeaway, I have two takeaways. I know the first takeaway is the Chiefs are playing, so I'll be quick. But the second takeaway, seriously, is that this is Shawnee Mission on the upswing. I mean, we have to look at the student portrait. We know what it looks like. We don't quite yet know how to measure it, but we're striving to do that. And all of us have aspirations for our kids to perform well. All of us want to make sure that we remove the barriers that would prevent some kids from attaining their aspirations, and then it gets into achievement. And achievement is about individual performance of a student, family support, teacher performance and training. It all comes together. But this kind of an assessment is really important for us to see how our system is doing, where might there be trends that we could identify in the system where we need to strengthen, where we need to intensify. And this is just one of several diagnostic instruments that we use. And finally, I think it's important for us to remember this is not a picture of a system frozen in time, but a snapshot of a very dynamic, moving system at that particular moment in time. It's constantly moving. The kids are constantly striving to do better. We're constantly striving to make things better. So I don't think one test or one systematic analysis constitutes a judgment of our total performance, but it's one standard for us to take a look at as we decide where we're going to spend our resources and where we're going to ask our teaching staff, our administrative leaders to spend their time. It's terrific, terrific information. It requires thoughtful attention in order, I think, to make policy decisions that are guided by it. I thank you for the good work.
Thank you both. I appreciate all the work. I'm just going to do a couple active listening and just a couple comments. One of the takeaways, I think, clearly is we're seeing some progress in some of our formative measures, which is exciting to see from that new baseline from 2023, coming out of COVID, which we're still kind of, I think, anyways, experiencing, and the changes in funding. So it's good to see kind of that with the incremental increase in funding, we're seeing incremental increase in our student performance. So that's great to see. And I appreciate the nod to all of the multiple metrics that we use to measure kind of the progress in the district, not only what you presented tonight, but also things like graduation rates and our market value assets, which are so meaningful to our students, as well as like the student engagement in the building level WIGs. When when we were able to join you on those Thursday morning meetings, all those buildings have WIGs up on the wall, and the kids are super excited to see that progress and those lead indicators, which contribute to that progress. So that's super exciting to see. I really wanted to comment on the leaning into proficiency, and Dr. Greenman, I know we've talked before, but I just wanted to emphasize the point that this term proficient and the state's kind of lead on leaning into proficiency and changes in the cut scores and the performance level descriptors in our state assessments, that proficiency really has two different meanings, I think, to our community when we think about the Kansas State assessments and what that means for our student learning and how we understand that. And you have, kind of the meaning that parents or the general public might take away, kind of that everyday use where students are capable and they're good at something, or in that educational context, they're being on track, they're at benchmark, they're approaching benchmark, they're exceeding benchmark, those kinds of things. Versus what I think proficient is used in terms of like our national educational assessment program, or even at our Kansas assessment level, we have aspirational goals that we've adopted at our state. And so when we look at levels 2 or levels, the proficient that you reported on tonight, levels 3 and 4, those are aspirational. And while our state assessment, I know, is not a grade level metric, I appreciate the way you presented the data tonight to try to understand the relationship between all these different metrics, that summative metric in relation to our formative. And the Acadians, those last charts, slides 36 through 39, looking, right, the ones with the, keep going.
Oh, I see.
Those.
Yeah.
Like, I think those are really helpful, and really, for those who are trying to understand what the Kansas assessment means. I'm sorry, it's a tool that has been weaponized against public education, right. So I think it's really important to understand that proficiency means different things to different people. And when it's used in the state assessment, it's used in that very aspirational way. But if we look at the Acadians, which looks at benchmark, we see 34% of our kids are scoring level 2 on the state assessments, but they're at benchmark, in grade 3 in those literacy pieces. And so I think it's really important to make sense to parents that we understand that there is more to the Kansas assessments and understanding. Reporting on just proficiency on the state assessments to me does not share the full picture, but I understand it's a requirement of the federal government, and so I understand why we're doing that, and our state has those aspirational goals. So I would just encourage parents, there's a great resource on the Kansas Department of Education website under the Kansas Assessment Program, so it's ksde.org, KAP, and under the resources you can go in and read examples of what, say, basic level performance might be, that level 2, or level 3, and there's examples at every grade level for each of the standards. So for example, level 2 basic for grade 3 for ELA standards includes recognizing text evidence, such as explicit details to show understanding of a text, identify facts and opinions and reasons to support opinion, identify themes, settings, and plot in 2 different texts on the same topic. That is literacy. That is a strong competency. And so I just want our folks to understand what those mean, and that is a great resource if you really want to try to dig in and maybe push back a little bit on some of the misinformation out there about what our Kansas assessments are telling us or are not telling us. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I would just add, Dr. Sinclair, I agree. It's unfortunate that some people will use these against us. We are clearly making great progress, and you are correct. It's more than just this measure. You know, we look at growing kids year over year. The MVA, the graduation rate, portrait of a graduate, ACT, SAT, AP scores, MAP testing, our resource data, attendance data, all of those different things are ways in which we can show success for our kids. It's not just this one test. This is important. We need to perform on it. But it is how they perform that one day on grade level standards that doesn't tell the whole picture of that one child.
So I just want to point out that it's a ton of data, and I really appreciate you putting it all together every year. There's so much in here that is, you know, it's the result. We're seeing the end result, and a lot of the things that are going into the equation, we can't necessarily like tease out as being this is the factor that impacted this, or this is the factor that impacted this. I mean, 2 of the other discussions tonight in front of the dais were like really good examples of things that would be impacting these results that are potentially outside of our control, such as like the enrollment data. We've got families potentially moving out because of lack of affordability or other stressors. And then we have a student providing what is their anecdotal evidence, but what we know is backed by data is that if you have a feeling of belonging in the classroom, you want to be there and you want to learn. And so there's things that like we are creating that we're not going to be able to tease out to say like this is why our data is potentially better across the board. We have certain things in play that we can't tease that out. And then there's other things that are completely outside of our control that are impacting it as well. So it's just this one piece, very valuable because it allows us to track our own progress regardless. I mean, we have to make sure our kids are educated no matter what. But the weight of it seems so heavy sometimes that there's so many things that go into this and that this is just like a small sliver that we get to measure, but that also manages to impact everything we do with regards to funding and how we're judged and rated as success. So every single number up there represents somebody's kid, you know? And I always like the kid that you point out that's like he wasn't here tonight, whoever he was. You know, the outlier. There's always that random child that's the outlier in the data. But in any event, that was not a question so much as it was a thank you for your work, because I know it appears to be tedious. I know it's not for you. But for those of us, you know, are not naturally inclined to understand all the data. But it's really important, so thank you.
Thanks for hanging with us, guys. A lot of information. Thank you very much. Good job, Dr. Grierman and payments.
Any closing comments? Good?
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. And so that brings us to 4.01, approval of consent items.
I move approval.
Second, Hembry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, so first action item, 6.01, approval of revised board policy CC.
You have several items before you, new policies. For this policy and the next one, policy EE, the Policy Review Committee did recommend a first and final read, given that there is very little to no change in the current practice. For this one, the title code and the language in this policy are being revised to bring it in line with KSB model policy. It has been our practice to review the organizational chart each summer, update it, and publish it on our website. So again, no change in practice. With that, I recommend approval of revised policy CC organizational chart.
Move approval, Hembry.
Second, Sinclair.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 6.02, approval of revised board policy EE.
Yeah, again, this is a first and final read. Truly nothing substantive here. We changed the name of food services to student nutrition services to better reflect the work that they do, and thus it required some changes within this policy. With that, I do recommend approval of revised policy EE, student nutrition.
So moved, Workman.
Second, Elsley.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes 7-0. 6.03, approval of new board policy JBCDD.
Yeah, so several second reads here. For each of these, I'm going to remind you and our community about the why behind these changes. As a reminder from our meeting 2 weeks ago, however, I did not get any feedback from any board members or any suggested changes. Just kind of note that. This one is a new policy recommended by KSB to address House Bill 2102 that passed during the 2025 legislative session. This policy provides for advanced enrollment for a military student whose parent or person acting as a parent will be stationed in this state in the succeeding school year. No proof of address shall be required at the time of enrollment. Again, this is a new policy, thus our practice will need to change, but we're ready to do that. I do recommend approval of new board policy JBCDD, enrollment of military students.
Move approval, Hembry.
Second, Westbrook.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes 7-0. 6.04, approval of revised board policy BBC.
This policy is being revised to direct employees to use the grievance process contained in their applicable negotiated agreement or personnel manual because those documents set forth a specific grievance procedure. To give a little more.
Wait,
We're on
Oh, sorry.
BBC.
this is the board committees.
Thank you, guys. I apologize.
We're
You're trying to
updating.
move us along.
I was trying to move you quicker. I apologize. My apologies. This one is KSB recommended revisions to policy BBC in order to comply with new language in the open meetings law. House Bill 2134 amended KSA 754318 to provide as follows. When a subcommittee or other subordinate group is created by a public body or agency, whenever a majority of such subcommittee or other subordinate group meets, such subcommittee or other subordinate group shall be subject to the requirements of this act. I think it's important to note and for us to state that it does not require any change of our practice. You guys have always followed that. So I do recommend the approval of policy BBC.
So moved, Elsley.
Second, Hembry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 6.05, approval of revised board policy CN.
Okay, I'm on track now. This policy is being revised to conform with KSB model policy. KSB is recommending revisions to its model policy to reflect changes in the open records law. House Bill 2134 amended KSA 45219. Again, I want to note that David Smith and Ms. England always work with people who are making these requests and communicate with them to try to limit these costs, and we always use the least expensive employee. Again, no suggested edits, therefore I recommend approval of revised policy CN, public records.
So move Sinclair.
Second.
Second, Westbrook.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 6.06, approval of revised board policy DFE.
Okay, this is investment revenue. It's in response to KSA 121675. KSB's making this recommendation to bring it in line. No substantive changes at all from current practice. I did not receive any suggested edits. Therefore, I do recommend approval of revised policy DFE, investment revenue.
Move approval, Hembry.
Second, Workman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 6.07, approval of revised board policy GAE.
Okay. This is employee grievances. This is directing employees to that grievance process I mentioned previously. We'll talk about policy KN here in a little bit. little more context, district administration saw some confusion with our employees on when to use the grievance procedure and when to use potentially this policy. We believe this is adding clarification. We did update the grievance procedures in all of our manuals this summer, including the P&A. So adoption of this policy will not remove the employee's ability to grieve, but better clarify the process. We'll talk about safeguards for board policy in KN. Did not receive any suggested edits, so therefore I do recommend revised policy JAE, employee grievances.
GAE.
GAE, gosh, guys, I'm sorry.
So moved, Astley.
Second, Westbrook.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes 7-0. 6.08, approval of revised board policy JBC.
JBC. Language is being added to refer individuals with enrollment questions regarding to the previous policy that we passed, JBCDD, regarding military students. Small edits are being made to fall in line again with that JBCDD. Didn't receive any suggested edits or questions. I do recommend approval of revised policy JBC.
So move Sinclair.
Second, Hembry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes 7-0. 6.09, approval of revised board policy JGFGB.
Yeah, supervision of medications. This is a KSB recommended language be added that staff members cannot hand out any medications that are illegal in Kansas. No changes at all from our current practice. This actually codifies what we're already doing. Again, did not receive any suggested questions or edits. I recommend approval of revised policy JGFGB.
So moved, Westbrook.
Second, Hembry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes 7-0. 6.10, approval of revised board policy JH.
Student activities. KSB is recommending revisions to this policy to reflect changes in the law resulting from SB 114, which focused on homeschool, virtual school, and non-public school participation in school-related activities. You might remember that we mentioned we have about 20 kids from outside of the district participating in our programs right now. It is hard for us to predict if this will have a large impact on us, but it is state statute. Did not receive any suggested edits or questions. I am recommending approval of revised policy JH.
So move approval. Sinclair.
Second, Borgman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes 7-0. 6.11, approval of revised board policy KN.
Okay, this is complaints. Referenced this in the previous policy. We're recommending we add language to this policy that directs individuals with complaints to the parent and community chain of communication and explains how complaints regarding board policy will be addressed. Again, we're trying to clarify that process. We've already taken care of the grievance procedures in JAE. This policy, KN, allows individuals the ability to challenge board policy and also directs them to solve concerns at the lowest possible level and refers them to our district chain of communication, which of course is published on our website. So no suggested edits since the last reading. I'm recommending approval of revised policy KN.
Move approval, Westbrook.
Second, Sinclair.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 6.12, approval of Fifth Amendment to real estate purchase agreement.
Okay, this is an exciting one, guys. The board, the city of Westwood, and the patrons have been patient, and this final amendment will certainly serve the needs of the district, and I would submit the neighborhood as well. This Fifth Amendment will memorialize the city of Westwood's assignment of this contract to real estate investor Hunt Midwest. This, of course, is our old Westwood View Elementary property. With your approval tonight, Hunt Midwest will pay the district a little over $3 million, and the closing should come before the Thanksgiving holiday. I'd like to recognize the hard work of Rachel England and all of the representatives from the city of Westwood for their patience and their diligent work towards this culminating agreement. With that, I'm proud to say that I recommend the board approve the Fifth Amendment of this real estate purchase agreement.
Move approval, Borkman.
Second, Hembry.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes 7-0.
There you go.
All righty, 6.13, authorization of contract with supplemental health care.
A little bit of context for you here, and Sherry Dummeline is here for any other questions. But as you may recall, at the beginning of the year, we brought to you a new employment contracting agreement that we had hoped would solve our contracting staffing needs. Unfortunately, we've been able to complete all of those staffing requirements with that new agreement. Fortunately, all of these supplemental contracting agreements are pay-as-you-go. Therefore, we are just paying for what we use. A few months ago, you may remember that we did bring you to another similar agreement. We do think this will be it, we hope. This is a company that we've used before and are confident that this will bring us the staffing that we need. So this is serving our special needs students, any health-related issues. Again, it's pay as we need the services. So I do recommend authorization of the contract with supplemental health care to provide supplemental staffing on an as-needed basis for the 25-26 school year.
Move approval, Westbrook.
Second, Sinclair.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes 7-0. 6.14, authorization to contract with Mammoth Sports Construction.
So we're going to end the action items tonight with some really exciting news, we think, for one of our high schools and ultimately for the entire district. Dr. Stubblefield has done an amazing job, him and his team, in getting us here. David, you want to share some information?
Yeah, so first of all, we're excited to partner with Mammoth Sports Construction, a Kansas-based company. As you are aware, the configuration of the sports fields on Shawnee Mission West is pretty tight. And finding an appropriate space for the baseball field was challenging. The West baseball team currently practices at the Early Childhood Center, which is about 2.5 miles from their campus, so they have to get in their cars, go to practice after school every day. We wanted to address this because we feel like it's a safety issue as well as an equity issue. So with the thoughtful approach that we had with our administrators here at the district office, the school administrators at Shawnee Mission West, along with Mammoth, we have come up with a solution to get a baseball field on the West campus for practice. Yeah, very exciting. So in addition to the designing of the baseball field on the West campus, the project will also include replacing the combination turf, softball field, and soccer field. Those turf areas were coming to end of life anyway, so it was kind of perfect timing for us to do this project. So again, significant for the Shawnee Mission West community that we will get their baseball team practice field back on their campus, as well as the combo turf fields completed. So again, just a very exciting time to provide safety as well as equity for Shawnee Mission West.
So thanks to David for his work on that. So I am recommending contracting with vendor Mammoth Sports Construction to provide sports construction services related to a synthetic turf combo field extension at Shawnee Mission West High School in the amount of $1,399,000 with a 5% contingency to cover any unforeseen circumstances. Project is expected to commence at the conclusion of the fall sports season, which is right upon us, with project completion estimated for March of 2026. This expense will be funded from the capital fund. The expenditure meets the goals of the strategic plan Strategy 6 facilities.
I'd like to move approval, Westbrook.
Second, Borkman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We've now come to our board comments, 7.0.
Go Chiefs.
I think that's the consensus. All right, so the next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be November 10th, 2025. If nothing else, no further ado, we are adjourned. Thank you.